You are a part of this experience on today, and we look forward to having an amazing day full of information, resources, and tools that's going to help us on our way to positively impacting the lives of the students and the families and the communities that we impact. As you're coming in, we want you to get familiar with the chat feature by just letting us know who you are and where you're coming from. So give us your name, give us your district, give us any information that you want to share about yourself within that chat, so that we know who is a part of this experience with us on today. And another thing is we want you to give us one word that tells us what you are looking to experience from today. What are you looking to gain from today? And so as you're coming in, just go ahead and let's give ourselves a greeting and we'll get going. My name is Roxy Hall. I am with Vanguard Solutions Consulting, and we have had the pleasure and the opportunity and we have been honored to work with the amazing African American History Task Force team. Snap, snap, snap to all of them. Let's give them a great job on the work that they did to put this event together. And we have served as a virtual meeting planner. And it is my task to welcome you in and it's just to share some information with you as it relates to the logistics of the event, the app, and just to share some information with you. So I'm going to share my screen with you at this time. And we're going to go directly to the actual app. We're going to the actual online app web portal. All right, and the VSC Tech team is going to put a direct link to that portal just in case you don't have it. But that is accessible from the African American History Task Force website, and it brings you directly to this app portal. At this app portal, you will have the opportunity to get all of the information that you need as it relates to this experience on today. You will have an opportunity to look at the agenda, take a look at the agenda. You will have the opportunity to take a look at our speakers. And if you want to know about each speaker, you're going to click on that speaker and again, learn more about that speaker and look at his or her individual page. Also from the app, you will be able to log into every single session. Say, for example, if you drop out of the session and you want to come back in, you come into the app and immediately you click Join Stream. Now, this is the online web portal, but this is also accessible via your cell phone app, which is extraordinarily exciting. And we're going to be doing some things within our app. Many of you have already downloaded the app. If you have not downloaded the app at this point in time, you can still download the app. You can go to the home page, or you can also go directly to the link that the VSC Tech team will put in the chat, and you will be able to download the app. From the app, you will receive up-to-date news and information about this entire experience. As I said, you can come down to the bottom of the page and download the actual app for this experience. You can download the app for this experience, and it will take you directly to the app. I'm not going to wait for it to go there because time is of the essence, but click that button and you can download the app. It's also extraordinarily important for us that you complete the pre-institute survey. Before we even get going on today, we need you to complete the pre-institute survey. All of those links will be within the chat on this morning. We will put them in there on a regular basis. We will ensure that we're communicating via that chat feature. Something else that we want you to be able to recognize and know that you have at your access is you have the chat feature. In addition to the chat feature, you have a Q&A feature. In that Q&A feature, you can actually pose questions to our panel. You can pose questions throughout the event, and someone from our team will be able to answer you within the chat. Either they can type an answer in the chat for you, or they will be able to answer your question virtually via the experience. So again, it is our desire that you are very interactive. This is an interactive experience, and you are able to interact with us via the chat feature, via the Q&A. Throughout the experience, we're going to have giveaways. Throughout the experience, we're going to have polls, and we want to hear from you. And so again, download the app. If you are not comfortable with the telephone app or your mobile app, you can come to the web app portal, and you will also be able to get every single feature that is available in the mobile app. Again, we are so excited that you are a part of this experience with us. We will continue to keep you updated via the chat feature with information to remind you of where you can be and stay connected. And if at any point in time you have an issue, feel free to text the VSE Tech team. Thank you. And now I introduce Dr. Samuel Wright.
Good morning and welcome to the Commission of Education's African American History Task Force 2022 Virtual Summer Institute, Connections and Contributions, Teaching Authentic History. As a state task force representing the commissioner, we are keenly interested in improving outcomes for all children in our schools, especially African American children. Thus, we are intimately involved in helping teachers to do a remarkable job in engaging students in their classrooms. And in the years in the field, we have gleaned that young people are empowered in many ways when they are engaged by their teachers, especially when they subscribe to culturally responsive pedagogy. The infusion of African American history in the daily curriculum have shown that self-awareness through knowledge of African history increases young people's self-esteem. Our mission and vision are not to operate in silos. We endeavor to collaborate and build partnerships for the betterment of our children and teachers across this state. Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., one of the greatest orators of our time and famed civil rights leader, said once, "Our lives begin to end the day we become silent about things that matter." Since the enactment of the legislation by the Florida State Legislature in 1994 to require history, culture, and experiences and contributions of African Americans, including the history of African peoples, is infused through the K-12 curriculum in classrooms throughout the state, the African American Task Force has not remained silent. We continue to advocate for education of the masses. Those of us who have studied history and have traveled abroad to Africa and elsewhere realize the significant contributions our people have made to this world. In a couple of days of the Institute, you cannot learn it all, but this information will enlighten you in your attempt to satisfy the intent of the Florida Statute 1003.42.2H. I'm bringing you this welcome on behalf of our chair, Mr. Tony Hill, who cannot be with us today. So I thank you for attending today's Institute. Please enjoy your day. I apologize. My next assignment is to introduce one of my best friends and colleagues, Dr. Brenda Walker Esquire. She is a professor at the University of South Florida in the College of Education. She attended and received her doctorate from the University of Kansas in behavior disorders and learning disabilities. And she's also a graduate of the Stetson Law School. She has her JD. Dr. Walker developed the first successful initiative to recruit and prepare African American men to teach children with behavior disorders. It was called Project Pilot. She has published several journal articles, book chapters, and a children's book. Dr. Walker serves in the K-12 schools by delivering motivational and educational speeches and workshops to students, teachers, and principals. She is a phenomenal consultant to parents on many occasions. Let me say that she's a member of this African American History Task Force, and she currently has a Call Me Mr. program for African American men in USF St. Pete. Please welcome my dearest friend, Dr. Brenda Louise Walker, Esquire.
Thank you so much, Dr. Wright, for that wonderful, wonderful, glowing introduction. I really appreciate you. And most importantly, I appreciate your friendship and your collegiality. So greetings, everyone. This morning, I have the distinct honor, privilege, and pleasure to introduce to you Dr. Paul O. Burns, Deputy Chancellor for Educator Quality in the Florida Department of Education. Dr. Paul O. Burns earned his Bachelor of Arts degree from the University of Arkansas and his doctorate in educational leadership from St. Louis University, where his research focused on teacher turnover in the state of Florida. Before beginning his teaching career, Dr. Burns lived and studied in France, focusing on second language acquisition. Upon returning to the United States, he began his teaching career as a French teacher in Missouri. Dr. Burns served in numerous school leadership roles in Missouri before moving to Florida in 2014, when he joined the Sarasota County School District as a school leader. In January 2018, Dr. Burns joined the Florida Department of Education as the Deputy Chancellor for Educator Quality, bringing with him nearly 20 years of experience in both public and private schools. In this role, ladies and gentlemen, he oversees the bureaus of educator certification, recruitment, development, and retention, standards and instructional support, the Just Read Florida office, and professional practices services. His work focuses on improving student learning by ensuring that every Florida teacher and leader is prepared, developed, supported, and supervised by educators who strive to enhance and improve the teaching profession. I present to you this wonderful morning, Dr. Paul O. Burns. Thank you.
Well, good morning, everyone, and thank you, Dr. Walker, for that really warm introduction. I will say that sometimes when I hear that bio read, I do cringe a little because I think, who is this person they're talking about? This is Paul Burns, right? A teacher and a leader that is deeply involved in education. But certainly, thank you for saying that. I will say, though, now that, having heard that bio read, I'm gonna have to change that up. When you say nearly 20 years, that just means I've got more gray hair here on the side of my head. But certainly, thank you, Dr. Walker, for that introduction. Really glad and thrilled to be with you here as the Commissioner of Education's African American History Task Force really kicks off your Summer Institute and your learning. I also want to take just a moment and thank Dr. Wright for his welcome remarks this morning. Very insightful, Dr. Wright, and I can tell you to the individuals that are here as a part of this professional learning, you got lucky this morning with having Dr. Wright start us off and welcome us to our Summer Institute. And let me tell you why. Dr. Walker gave it away. She told you that I was a former teacher and principal. And in my role as a teacher and a principal, and so many educators I see that are on the call this morning, I could see that coming through the chat. One of the ways that we know that our students are engaged, that we know that our students are able to have the knowledge that we are presenting them is by giving a quiz or test, right? Now, I know you're thinking it's summertime, Paul. Why would you be giving a quiz or a test and it's summer? But I will say Dr. Wright gave you the answer to that quiz this morning as he quoted our required instruction statute. So I am thrilled and really overjoyed to be with all of you today as you engage in this institute and engage in professional learning. Let me tell you that at the department, what we believe is that the professional learning or professional development that you are engaged in, that you are present for today, is truly one of the most important levers or one of the most important conditions that we can use to improve the outcomes for all of our students across the state of Florida. So even though I didn't give you a quiz because Dr. Wright gave the answer, you know I'm going to leave you with some homework. What I'm going to challenge you to do is to think about, as you engage in this amazing experience, I want you to be thinking about how you will take this learning back to your schools, back to your districts, back to the roles that you are in, to continue to support increased outcomes for all of our students across the state of Florida. As we get kicked off this morning, I want to take just a little bit of time to talk to you about some of the exciting work that we have going on at the Florida Department of Education. I also want to give a shout out and thank so many of my FDOE, my Florida Department of Education colleagues. I saw some of them on the screen this morning and saw some of them typing in the chat. So thanks to those Department of Education members who are here in attendance this morning. And certainly want to also thank the Bureau of Standards and Instructional Support under the leadership of Mrs. Angelia Rivers, soon to be, so if she's on this, we need to continue to encourage her, soon to be, as she finishes that dissertation, Dr. Angelia Rivers and her team, Cindy Huffman, who is the liaison for the task force. I saw John Dubel. Also, I know we have Holly Edenfield on, so just a few names that I saw. And I do want to say, Cindy, you echoed that, our awesome boss. Really, that's supposed to be soon to be Dr. Rivers helping lead this work. So thank you to all of the team members that are here from the Florida Department of Education. But here at the department, it is an exciting time for us. It's a great month for us here in the month of June. Folks often think, well, schools are out right for the summer. Are you guys working at the department during the summer? And I can assure you that here at the Department of Education, we are hard at work. And if you have been watching the news and the media, you also see that we have a brand new commissioner who started on June 1st. Commissioner Manny Diaz, and I can tell you Commissioner Diaz has come on board and has hit the ground running. We are so thankful to Commissioner Corcoran and his leadership. Commissioner Corcoran came on board in January of 2019 and led us up until the month of May. And Commissioner Corcoran did an amazing job continuing to focus on the teaching and learning and the safety and security of all of our students across the state of Florida. We had an interim commissioner. So many of you know him because of his work across the state. That was interim Commissioner Jacob Oliva, who has now returned to his role as senior chancellor, helping lead many divisions at the department. But Commissioner Diaz has officially transitioned as our new commissioner, and we are thrilled with Commissioner Diaz and all of the work that he has already put forward and the vision he is setting for us here at the department. He has been clear that we cannot take our foot off the gas. We cannot rest. And it is up to us as a department. It is up to our teachers and leaders to continue to strengthen our knowledge so that we are fully prepared to welcome our students back in August of 2022. So it's inspirational to see so many teachers and educators that are here today doing just that. By you being present today, you are not taking your foot off the gas. You are continuing to push forward and deepen your own learning so that you can impact the lives of our students across the state of Florida. A couple of other topics I want to touch on, and again, Dr. Wright gave that away, but that's our required instruction statute. I will tell you what the quiz question was going to be. I was going to ask someone to either come off mute or type in the chat what our required instruction statute is, but again, Dr. Wright gave that to you, 1003.42. Now, I know for my educators that are on the call, you may be thinking, Paul, why are you quoting these numbers to me? I will lean into some vulnerability and tell you that I thought I was a rather successful teacher and principal. And when I came to the department, there were my team members that were quoting those numbers to me. Those numbers were important because those were our Florida statutes that guide the teaching and learning and guide and outline what we are required to teach in all of our Florida classrooms. And as Dr. Wright shared with you, the teaching of African American history is required. It's laid out in law. And so we are glad that we have an organization like the Commissioner's African American History Task Force that is able to help provide professional learning to teachers and to leaders and to school districts across the state of Florida to make sure that we are teaching history and we're teaching African American history. So glad that you're going to continue to be a part of that work. I know that I also want to make sure that we stay on time. And so I want to just give you a few more updates. And that's about our recent legislative session that ended. And as that legislative session ended, we have had several bills that have been signed into law. And I know, and I think this very task force has been wrestling with House Bill 7 and thinking about some of the changes to that required instruction statute that Dr. Wright mentioned. And what I want to tell you is that we are involved in implementation of that work as well. So this is my second homework assignment. Now, you know, there might be a prize. I might have Dr. Kelly deliver the prize right here. But remember, I tell you I was gonna give you homework here. But our second homework assignment is going to be for you all to stay tuned because we will be sending out a memo here from the Department of Education. We are looking for work group members that are on this very task force to be involved as we implement House Bill 7, because what House Bill 7 did was House Bill 7 opened up, right? Those are my words, it opened up. It essentially modified, amended, or changed our required instruction statute. And listen, I love it already. I see Elizabeth. So I know from our FDOE people, listen, I already saw Cindy on there. Cindy, you want to start capturing these names? See, I'm giving Cindy homework too this morning. But we are certainly excited to be able to look at our African American history standards, our courses that we have based on that new legislation, because it has deepened what we have to teach in these courses based on that. And so we want members of this task force to be involved in that important work. So thank you, thank you, thank you. We know that so many of you are going to be involved in that great work as we move forward. So again, I just want to say from the department, a good morning and a welcome, and to thank you for your work and your dedication to your own learning and to the learning of our students across the state of Florida. Anytime that we ask individuals to take time out of their busy lives, to take time away from their work, from their families, to engage in professional learning, we want that professional learning to be meaningful. And I heard Roxy at the beginning, I wrote these down. She reminded us that this is an interactive experience. We want this to be a rich experience for you to engage in. That's this African American History Task Force modeling best practices of teaching. I heard Roxy also talk about the work positively impacting student lives. Both Roxy and Dr. Wright said that. So we want to say a thank you for your work, because the work that you're doing here, the work that you're doing in this Summer Institute will absolutely continue to make sure that we keep our eyes on the prize, and that prize is increased outcomes for all of our students across the state of Florida. So again, welcome, and thank you for being here. And thanks for allowing me to be here.
Thank you so much, Dr. Burns. We appreciate your taking the time to welcome our participants, and the numbers are increasing. I guess teachers are still waking up, and we pray for that. But thank you, Erin. We'll turn it over to Erin Cochran.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you all so much for joining today. I'm really excited to be able to give some background and to share our next speaker. And so our next speaker is Representative Geraldine Thompson. And when Geraldine Thompson was elected on November 6, 2018, she became the first female Democrat and person of color to serve on the Florida House District 44. After receiving an undergraduate degree from the University of Miami in 1970 and a Master's of Science degree from the Florida State University in 1973, Geraldine Thompson served for 6 years as an Orange County public school teacher. She later served for 24 years as an administrator at Valencia Community College, where she established the College Reach Out program, which enabled thousands of low-income and disadvantaged students to fulfill their dream of going to college. Representative Thompson also developed a reputation as a respected historian for compiling the history of African Americans in Central Florida and authoring the book Black America, Orlando, Florida. She led the campaign to preserve one of Orlando's unique landmarks, the Wells-built Hotel, which during the days of segregation provided lodging to some of America's most prominent citizens, including Justice Thurgood Marshall. Today, the landmark is known as the Wells-built Museum of African American History and Culture. She previously served in the Florida House of Representatives from 2006 until 2012. She was elected to the Florida Senate in 2012 and served until 2016. Significant legislation which she initiated and saw passed included bills to exonerate the Groveland Four, provide compensation to James Joseph Richardson, who was wrongly incarcerated for 22 years, and outlaw discrimination against pregnant women in the workplace. Representative Geraldine Thompson is born in New Orleans and grew up in South Daytown in Pyrenees, Florida, where members of her family worked in agriculture and construction. She is married to the Honorable Emerson R. Thompson, Jr., and is the mother of 3 children and the proud grandmother of 4. She enjoys reading and traveling in her spare time. Please welcome Representative Geraldine Thompson.
Thank you so much, and good morning, everyone. I'll have to update my resume to say now that I'm the grandmother of 6. In April, my youngest daughter had identical twin girls. So I now have 6 granddaughters, and I'm excited about the world that they are growing up in and want to make sure that they and other children know who they are, know where they have come from, know who their ancestors are and the contributions that they have made to American society. And I think this is critically important because our teaching, the education that we're talking about, does not occur in a vacuum. When we saw the gunman travel to Buffalo, New York, with the intent of killing as many African Americans as possible, those are his words, he did not learn to devalue the lives and contributions of African Americans in the classroom. He learned that in society where we have a very volatile situation in terms of being able to be authentic about America and about our history and where we have come from. So the classroom is the solution rather than the problem. And had that young man been exposed to what you all are discussing here today and what we are obligated to teach in our classrooms, he would understand that there is no great replacement theory. What we do, we don't focus on theory. We focus on facts. We focus on information. And notwithstanding House Bill 7, which indicates that you cannot present information in classrooms that makes students feel uncomfortable, which is a very subjective standard in terms of how a student is going to feel. But notwithstanding that, we can present factual information, authentic historical facts regarding the journey that we have taken to get to a point where America is more inclusive. And we should not be concerned about presenting the facts, presenting authentic history. That is our responsibility. And as a member of the legislature, sometimes it's very difficult to determine what legislators really want. We also have a bill that requires that our colleges and our universities respond to surveys to determine if conservative ideas are being presented, whether they are unpopular, whether they make people feel uncomfortable. We're told that divergent ideas ought to be presented in our institutions of higher education. So you have two things that are diametrically opposed to one another. One says, don't present anything that makes people feel uncomfortable. And the other is saying, you must present divergent ideas, even if it makes students uncomfortable. So I said jokingly to a group that sometimes I get whiplash trying to determine what it is that the legislature wants. And so you have instructors in our colleges and our universities, and you have students in those same institutions who now must complete surveys to determine if, in fact, divergent ideas, conservative philosophy, and positions are being presented. And at the same time, we're looking at HB 7 that says we can't present information that makes students uncomfortable. What we do is to present factual data, not theory, but fact. And there's a lot of discussion, obviously, about critical race theory. We're not teaching theory. We're teaching facts, things that can be documented, things that can be researched, things that can be verified through research. And so that is what I've been involved in with regard to the legislature. While the bill, I think the term was used, has been opened up in terms of the responsibility, I think we're at a critical juncture now with a new commissioner, and it is our opportunity to say, this is how we teach the information. This is what it is that we're going to do to comply with the law at the same time that we meet the requirements of the statute that is already in force. And I'm glad to see that there were volunteers who have raised their hands to say that I'm on board in terms of how we do this. We have a new commissioner who I believe wants this kind of input and wants some directions in terms of how we do this. I am not oblivious to the concerns that some people have expressed that HB 7 seeks to whitewash history. And we have an obligation and an opportunity to make sure that the history that is presented in our classrooms in Florida does in fact reflect the lives and the contributions of various people, but in particular for this task force for African Americans. We need to not lose focus of the fact that this is what it is that we are supposed to be doing. And it's taken us a long time. We're not there yet, but we are moving in the right direction. It's taking us a long time to be able to implement that law fully. I think we have an opportunity as well to look at textbooks. If it isn't in the textbooks, then it isn't taught. And the textbooks that are adopted many times don't reflect African American history. And we saw some textbooks, math books in particular, that were rejected because there was the notion that critical race theory had somehow crept into the instruction of math. And one of the reasons that a book was rejected, I'm told, was that it had a picture of an African American child. Is that critical race theory? It is not. And so we've got to be involved in all aspects of the teaching of African American history, from the textbooks to the lesson plans, the curricula, the how-to, and we can teach African American history through Black cemeteries. That's an option. Certainly through museums, that's an option. So it doesn't always have to be centered in the classroom. We can visit historical sites. We know that in Florida, Harry T. Moore and Harriet Moore are recommended for the Medal of Freedom. They are Floridians, and that information needs to be there. We are the only state in the nation to vote to be represented in Statuary Hall by an African American female, Dr. Mary McLeod Bethune, one of the greatest Floridians who gave her life really to education here in the state of Florida. And her statue will be unveiled in Statuary Hall. Rosa Parks is also in Statuary Hall, but she's there by an act of Congress. Mary McLeod Bethune is there by an act of the Florida legislature that voted to replace Confederate General Edmund Kirby Smith's statue with one of Dr. Mary McLeod Bethune. And I want to invite all of you to Ocoee this Saturday. We will be celebrating Juneteenth and unveiling the exhibit on Dr. Bethune and her journey to Statuary Hall. We'll be at the West Shore Center from 10 to 1 with that exhibit. So we have a lot of opportunities, a lot of different ways that we can present African American history. We have an opportunity to provide to our new Commissioner of Education different methods to meet the requirements. And we're not proposing that we ascribe blame, responsibility. We just want to present the facts. So thank you all for being here. I see over 144 participants this morning, and we will be together again tomorrow. Thank you all for being here, and there will be a lot of takeaways, things that you can then go back to your districts, back to your classrooms with regard to teaching African American history. And I will be working on the legislative side to make sure that this continues to be one of our priorities. So good morning to everyone.
Thank you so much, Representative Thompson. Your work is one that we could never repay you for what you have contributed to keeping the culture alive in the state of Florida. We appreciate your efforts, and I encourage everyone to just adhere to the words that Representative Thompson has shared with us. We need to, and Dr. Burns, we need to keep our foot on the gas. And Representative, we just appreciate you wholeheartedly. Whatever it is that we could do to keep this House Bill 7 in the right order, let us know. We're here to appreciate that. I want everybody who's on to know that Representative Thompson is an official, ex-officio member of the task force, and we appreciate her efforts. So at this time, I want to thank you, everyone, for getting up this morning and attending something that is so critically important. Take the time to go and read what affects you, teachers, educators, that keeps us under the gun, that keeps us having to keep our foot on the gas. With, you know, critical race theory has been pushed as something that's harming everyone. It has no place in this particular legislation. With that, I'm going to start sharing to you what exactly is the role of the African American History Task Force. The African American History Task Force actually was created in 1995 after the legislation was passed in 1994. You can go to the next slide, thank you. So in 1994, the required instruction, and you've heard this number a lot this morning, 100342.42H, to teach American history was passed. Nevertheless, to date, unfortunately, we only have 11 Florida school districts that have embraced this mandate. There's 67 school districts plus additional other entities like the Florida Virtual School and a few charter private schools that need to be participating because they represent, like Representative Thompson have said, we need to represent the population of the student body in what we teach. This lack of participation of school districts in providing instruction about the history of African Americans is varied. Many educators have reported that this lack of instruction is because they lack the knowledge or guidance about what and how to teach the subject matter. So during these next couple of days, we want to give you some ideas of how you can incorporate some of this content into your particular teaching and learning. Through our website, we provide resources. We also provide other links to museums, strategies on how to teach. You're going to hear that in the next couple of days, and some opportunities for how you can learn more about how to contribute. So the Educational Enterprise in Florida wants to share, engage you so that you know what the tremendous contributions of African Americans to the state of Florida and to this nation. Representative Thompson just mentioned two very important people, Mary McLeod Bethune. So this is a statute in writing. This slide is going to be made available to anyone who wants it so that you can see that we don't have to sit in, we don't have to do a protest. It's already in law. And H says the history of African Americans, including the history of African peoples before the political conflicts that led to the development of slavery, the passage to America, the enslavement experience, abolition, and the contributions of African Americans to society. Certainly, this particular one is under the public K-12 education code, and it really reflects K-20 that this is supposed to be taught. So if we go to the next slide, please. So the mission of the African American History Task Force is varied. I often get calls, and I'm going to say this, I have been known as the principal investigator. You can go back, please. I have been known as the principal investigator for this particular entity and this effort for the last 20 years. Professor Eaton was the first PI, principal investigator, and chair of the African American History Task Force. So we get calls all the time about various things. We're not a policing body. We're not necessarily a enforcement body. We do not necessarily provide direction to anyone. So the state of Florida's African American Task Force is really an advocate for Florida's school districts, teacher education training centers, and the community at large in implementing the teaching of the history of African peoples and the contributions of African Americans to this society here in the United States and worldwide. The task force works to ensure awareness of the requirements, identify and recommend needed state education leadership actions, assist in adoptions of instructional materials by the state. You heard Dr. Burns talked about it. Go back for 1 minute. And build supporting partnerships. That's where you come in. We need you to help us to help ourselves. So with that being said, there are several goals that the African American History Task Force must do. One, promote awareness. Help us to understand and how to infuse the required instruction into the curriculum of Florida schools. So I'm hoping House Bill 7 allows us to develop some standards so that we can incorporate, as Representative Thompson indicated. She indicated that if it's not in the textbook, teachers don't necessarily teach it. And educators, you know that. Goal 2 is development of instructional guidelines, standardized framework, supplemental materials, resources that include African and African American history, experience. Dr. Coggins is going to be presenting a little bit later, and Dr. Akua. They're going to present a little bit later, and they're going to give you some ideas of how number 2 goal can be met. The third goal of the African American History Task Force is to provide pre and in-service training for implementation of the required instruction using various technologies and materials. So this is one of them, the Summer Institute. But your district, those who are in exemplary districts, will do the same thing, provide opportunities. And goal 4, make recommendations to the Commissioner of Education and the appropriate Florida Department of Education leaders that support the full implementation of the required instruction mandate. Over 2/3 of the student population in the state of Florida are of minority or underrepresented populations. So it is our duty to provide for them the history of their ancestors. So the website for our for the African American History Task Force is the HTTPS afromfl.org. The site includes resources for educators, and you can see the list, and I encourage you to go in and sign in and check back regularly to see what's there. And also there are resources, if you click next, for students. So students, we have something called 306, which is sponsored by EverFi, along with the African American History Task Force. We're going to hear from them as well as to what they're doing. You know, the 306 is the room where Martin Luther King was killed in Memphis, Tennessee. That's why it's called 306 African American History. But you're going to learn a little bit more about that as we go through the next couple of days. Next, please. And then you're going to hear a little bit about the exemplary status districts. What is the criteria? Dr. Austin is going to share with you a little bit later about how your district, if it is not already exemplary, how do they become exemplary? You want to be part of an exemplary district. And that means that you've been recognized by the task force and the Florida Department of Education. So this is a list of those 11 districts that are available to share workshops and those kinds of things. And you can see, if you don't see your district on this particular slide, then you need to probably ask, as a citizen, as a resident of that district, as a teacher educator, why are we not exemplary? So yes, thank you. Someone just reminded me that yes, Marion County just became exemplary in the last month or so. And they are very excited about it. So they've added to our list. Thank you for coming in today. Spread the word. It's not too late to share with someone about the African American History Task Force, and especially about this workshop. You're in for some great, great, great resources and talks and interest that will interest you and help your students become more aware of, and even yourself. You cannot teach what you do not know. So therefore, I encourage you, stay tuned. And this will be recorded and shared a little bit later for if you want to go back and you missed something and you didn't get that particular link. If you have questions, I'm going to remind you, like Roxy said, you can use one or two things. Q&A, which is at the bottom of your screen generally, and also in the chat. You can actually go in and ask questions of these panelists or any of the speakers that you have heard before that kind of welcome us and give us an idea of what's going on so that we can answer your questions directly. We're here to assist. We're here to help. The African American History Task Force is alive and well. You realize 1994 is a long time ago in somebody's eyes, and it is only 11 districts. Certainly we can do better in this state of Florida. We're not, as Dr. Representative Thompson said, we're not teaching critical race theory. We're teaching the facts, because that's our theme. Contributions, collaborations, teaching authentic history. I don't know how else to say it. We owe it to our young people to share with them where they come from so that they can know where they're going, so that they can look at the path as they move along. So many of our young people have no idea of what's going on. And given COVID-19, they are just in a state of, I don't know, depression, confusion, isolation. All those adjectives come to mind in me that say that if I knew from whence I came, I know where I am and where I should be going. I want to thank you again. We appreciate you. We want you to be engaged and a part of this task force. Even though there are a few members on the task force, you are part of the African American History Task Force, and we need your input. Thank you so much. Thank you, everyone who's spoken so far. And I thank those, if I don't get a chance to tell you, those who are contributing to our knowledge base about African and African American history, then I just want to say we love you. Thank you, and I'm going to give it back to the moderator. Have a great day and enjoy and then learn.
People are dying, oh my, others are crying. Many are wondering what will tomorrow bring. But I come to let you know you can wipe your tears away, 'cause there's gonna be a brighter day.
There'll be a new day. The sun will shine again. Hold on, there'll be a new day. I know it's coming someday soon. There'll be a new day. Keep on praying. People are hurting. People are yearning, wondering what will tomorrow bring. So we sing this song to encourage you, 'cause it won't be this way always.
The sun will shine again, I know. Don't be discouraged. Lift your hands and say, coming soon, coming soon. And they are yearning, but let me encourage you, my brother and my sister, better days coming. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Thank you, Dr. for those words, everyone. That was FAMU's concert choir. And yes, a new day is coming, and we're part of it. Now, Brian Knowles, who's from Palm Beach County, and he is a beautiful young man, and he's going to do our next introduction. Thank you, Brian.
Thank you, Dr. Kelly. Thank you for the African American History Task Force, all of our participants throughout the state of Florida for joining us today. And I'm just humbled and honored to first of all represent the exemplary district of Palm Beach County as the manager of our school district's Office of African American Studies. And just being able to bring this giant, this king, and introduce him this morning. Dr. Akue has been a huge influence. He's been instrumental even in the development of just teaching authentic history here locally in Palm Beach County. Even when I was in the classroom, I was one of those people who utilized his educator's power pack to engage and really just bring academic achievement for my students in the classroom, for our Black students can see themselves in a positive way. So Dr. Chike Akue is a leadership strategist, teacher, transformation specialist, and one of the most sought out national speakers at urban schools, educational conferences, colleges, and universities. He serves as assistant professor at an HBCU of educational leadership at Clark Atlanta University. Dr. Akue is a former teacher of the year and is widely known for his culturally relevant and responsive on-site and online professional development and curriculum resources. As the author of 11 books, he has written and published materials that are used in urban schools nationally and internationally. His most recent resource is Reading Revolution, which we'll talk about a little bit today, which is a comprehensive instructional support tool designed to dramatically increase reading comprehension, writing skills, vocabulary development, critical thinking, cultural competence, and character development. Without hesitation, this giant, this king, is going to bless us with his presence and drop some gems and some knowledge on our participants today. Without hesitation, I bring forth Dr. Chike Akue.
All right. Thank you so much, Dr. Knowles, for that amazing introduction. It's definitely an honor and a privilege to be here with you all today to share a little bit about how to start a reading revolution in your school, in your classroom, and in your district. All right. Again, my name is Dr. Chike Akue, and I want to bring you greetings from Clark Atlanta University, one of our great HBCUs. I'm a big supporter of HBCUs, so much so that I'm a graduate of two. I went to Hampton University undergrad and got my master's degree at Clark Atlanta University, where I'm also a professor in the Department of Education and Leadership. Also a big lover of FAMU and a big supporter of all HBCUs. So I also want to bring you greetings from the Teacher Transformation Institute, where we use standards-based, research-driven, and culturally relevant and responsive instructional strategies to increase student success. Man, that's a mouthful. Those are just a lot of big sounding words to say that our children are brilliant, but many of them are in schools and school systems where they're seen as a problem rather than as people. And so my team and I, we go into schools and school districts and colleges and universities, and we teach teachers how to bring out the brilliance in our children. And we do that by way of professional development, culturally relevant materials, large group instruction, social emotional learning focus groups, strategic planning, model teaching lessons, and online curricula, right? Now, I hope that by the time that I'm finished, you'll have this wonderful smile on your face like these educators do, because it's very important to me to meet the needs of those that I present, how to start a reading revolution in your classroom, school, or district. All right, so let's jump right in. A little bit about my background, in addition to what Dr. Knowles was sharing, is I'm a former language arts and literature teacher. So I'm one of you, so much so that I even still spend a great deal of time in schools working not only with teachers, but directly with students doing model teaching lessons, because I always want to have my finger on the pulse of the needs of the students that we serve. I'm also a former teacher of the year and former reading specialist. And what I'm about to share with you today is definitely informed, inspired, and influenced by my experiences as a language arts and literature teacher, former teacher of the year, and former reading specialist. I currently serve as a professor of educational leadership at Clark Atlanta University, and I'm also a leadership strategist to urban schools nationally, and I'm the author of 12 books. As a leadership strategist, I've done a great deal of professional development and curriculum development in the state of Florida around the African American history task force and legislation. And for that, I have Dr. Bernadette Kelly Brown to thank for a lot of those different opportunities, seeing what we had to offer and allowing us that opportunity. All right. So if we're going to start a reading revolution, I think it's best to start in the beginning. And I want to go back to some powerful words that were found in the tombs of one of our ancestors, the chief scribe named Ani. And he was the chief scribe of King Seti. And this is going back over 3,200 years ago. And he has some powerful words for us today, speaking from antiquity. He says, read, children of the future, and learn the secrets of the best of your ancestors, which are so distant to you and yet in reality so near. I think these are some powerful words to frame and set the context for what we're going to talk about today in terms of starting a reading revolution in our schools, in our classrooms, and in our districts. All right, bear with me for just a moment because my PowerPoint locked up, but I'm gonna get right back to it. All right, so now that we've seen those powerful words of the chief scribe Ani, let's also look at some powerful words from Keti. He says, follow in the footsteps of your ancestors, for the mind is trained through knowledge. Behold, their words endure in books. Open and read them and follow their wise counsel. This particular saying goes back from Keti all the way back 3,800 years ago to 1800 BCE, before the Common Era or before the Christian era. Most of our children don't know of their rich heritage, of how far back their contributions to reading and writing and language and literacy go, okay? And so what we want to do is we want to center them in the best of their culture. Now, Dr. Teresa Perry tells us in the book Young, Gifted, and Black, Promoting High Achievement Among African American Students, she talks about the African American philosophy of education. She says that this philosophy of education, freedom for literacy and literacy for freedom, racial uplift, citizenship, and leadership over the years has been encoded in the African American narrative tradition. In other words, part of the purpose for us being in deep pursuit of education as a people was always to be able to put ourselves in position to advocate on behalf of our people to get full citizenship and full freedom and rights, okay? So with that in mind, I want to take you back to when I was a language arts teacher and then a reading specialist. When I was interviewing for the position of reading specialist, my principal told me, well, we'd like to hire you for this position, but there's only one problem. I said, what's that? They said, well, we want to send you all of the students who have not passed the state test in reading, but we don't have a curriculum in place right now. And I said, no problem, because I was used to infusing my teachings as a language arts teacher. I was used to infusing cultural content into the curriculum to meet the needs of the students that I was teaching. And so I was used to developing my own activities, quizzes, worksheets, tests, and all sorts of things. I was used to developing curriculum, so that was not a problem for me. And so every day, I would write up a reading selection for my students. And that reading selection that I would write up for them was meant to mimic what they would experience on the state test. So it was a brief reading selection with 10 multiple choice questions right alongside of it. But the difference is the content of the reading selection was about their history and their culture, about Black heroes and sheroes, both ancient and modern. And so we would do one of these every day. The students would read it silently to themselves. I'd give them about 5 minutes, and they would answer the questions themselves. Then we would come back together and we would read it orally. And we would go through each question and look at not only what the correct answer is, but we would look in the paragraphs of the reading selection to identify where the answer could be found and why the answer was what it was. In the process, they were learning vocabulary development, how to draw inferences, reading comprehension, figurative and literal language, and so much more. But it wasn't enough for my students, for me, to have my students to pass the state test. I didn't want them to just be competent in reading comprehension. I wanted them to be culturally competent. And we saw something interesting happen that year, that as I began writing up one of these every day, we saw a dramatic increase in reading comprehension, vocabulary development, writing and critical thinking skills, cultural awareness, and test-taking skills. All of these as a result of doing one of these reading selections every day. But not only that, once we had done about 30 of these, I called upon a good friend of mine, Tavares Stevens, a master teacher himself, and we developed the book. We created 90 of these all together, and we developed the book, Reading Revolution. Now, that book has gone national and international, so thousands upon thousands of copies, and I believe even Dr. Knowles said that he had encountered that. But what I want to share with you today is a process that we began several years ago, digitizing all of the content in Reading Revolution to make it available to a wider audience. You see, one of the things that I found as I've gone around the country for the last 15 years, providing professional development and leadership training, is when I tell teachers and leaders we have to be more culturally relevant and responsive in our teaching, the response is always the same. Dr. Akua, I agree with you. There's just one problem. And I said, what's that? And they would say, I don't know as much about African and African-American history and culture as you do. And my response to the teachers is always the same, no problem. We have the tools to equip and empower you to go on the journey with your students. And so the smiles that you see on their faces is a result of having received this training and not being made to feel bad about what they don't know, but giving them an opportunity to go on the journey with their students. And that's how we created Reading Revolution Online. What is Reading Revolution Online? It's an instructional support tool that teachers and parents can use with students to dramatically increase reading comprehension, grammar and writing skills, vocabulary development, cultural competency, and character development. It contains 90 reading selections, 90 captioned videos. We know that our children are very much visual learners. 90 comprehension assessments, 90 vocabulary activities, 90 grammar activities, and 90 writing prompts with supplemental resources dealing with the science of reading. Now, what I like to do is I like to take you through a brief demo of Reading Revolution Online so that you can see for yourself just what a powerful resource this could be for you and other educators, okay? So I'm gonna share my screen. And Dr. Knowles, if you could let me know if you can see the screen, if you can turn your camera on, give me a thumbs up, or I just wanna make sure everybody can see, or somebody, all right? Or put it in the chat box. Can you see the screen? All right, awesome,
Yes, we
thank
can.
you so much. All right, so now as you can see, we've got these grayed out portions which represent the reading selections, okay? And then for each of the reading selections, there are 4 primary activities. I'm gonna take you to this one right here. We start off with a power quote. It could be an African proverb or quote from or about the person that we're about to read about. This one says, books are worth their weight in gold. It's an African proverb. Then we have what we call Baobab vocabulary. We call it Baobab vocabulary because you may be aware the Baobab tree in African tradition and culture is called the tree of life because it provides for so many of the resources needed in the village and community. So we call it Baobab vocabulary because doing these activities brings life to your vocabulary development, to your reading comprehension and critical thinking skills. So if I was teaching a class, I would ask them if books are worth their weight in gold. What's your favorite book or book that you like? And we would have a conversation. If I was teaching this in class, I would ask the students to repeat these vocabulary words after me so that they know the proper pronunciation. As we scroll down, here is the reading selection. You can see the vocabulary words underlined for easy identification. And here we have the captioned video. Now, the average captioned video is about 3 minutes, and I'm going to play this for you because I want you to be able to see and experience what students experience. And then I'll take you through a brief comprehension assessment and some of the additional tools that we have, okay? I'm going to leave the captions off for about the first 30 seconds or so, and then I'm going to put the captions on so that you can see what a great tool that can be for your students as well. So here we go. Pay close attention because we're going to take a comprehension assessment shortly, okay?
Ahmed Baba and the University of Sankore. From the 1300s to the 1700s, Timbuktu was one of the greatest cities in all of Africa. Situated near the Niger River, this great center of learning was known throughout the land. It was also an important trading center for gold, salt, iron, and books. Timbuktu had quite a reputation for educational excellence and wealth, so much so that students and scholars came from all over Africa, Asia, and Europe to study at the famed University of Sankore. Being near the river gave people easy access to this thriving city of trade and education and attracted many people. Ahmed Baba was the president of the University of Sankore for 30 years. During this time, he upheld the African standard of excellence, running the university with great vision. Also during this time, he authored 42 books. This means he wrote more than one book per year in addition to his duties as president. Additionally, Ahmed Baba had over 1,600 books that he owned in his personal library. This shows that he knew the power of books to transform the mind. To Africans who introduced the art of writing to the world, books were sacred and holy. Books were valued so much that people paid for books using only gold. The book a person desired to purchase would be placed on one side of a scale, and gold dust would be sprinkled on the other side of the scale until the scales were balanced. Books in Timbuktu and in the empires of Mali and Songhai were literally worth their weight in gold. Because of this, the book industry was just as lucrative as the gold, salt, and iron industries. People who studied at Timbuktu learned law, medicine, and healing, writing and literature, astronomy, the study of the stars, and agriculture, the study of farming, and much more. They took their knowledge and understanding of what they learned back to other parts of Africa, Asia, and Europe. Some even came to America. History also shows us that virtually every home in Timbuktu had an extensive library of books and manuscripts.
Okay, so that's an example of one of our captioned videos. And the captioned video goes hand in hand with this printed text that's exactly the same. And students and teachers can always refer back to the printed text or the captioned video at any time when doing the activities. As we scroll down, we see our Baobab vocabulary activity. This particular one is a click and drag activity. Whoops, okay. This particular one is a click and drag activity. So we know the word is on the left-hand side, the definition is on the right-hand side. Okay, so we know lucrative means profitable. We know the word sacred means holy. Let's see, we know that astronomy is the study of the stars and so forth. We know that agriculture is the study of farming and so forth. So the student can click at the bottom and the system will score that for them, okay? So the first activity was our Baobab vocabulary activity. The second activity for each of the 90 reading selections is our comprehension assessment. So I'm gonna reset that. And I'm going to run through this just so that you can see. And as you can see, some of our vocabulary words will be in the comprehension assessment as well. In this context, we know the word situated means located, but I'm going to put the incorrect answer on purpose because I want you to see how the system will score it. Okay. All right. And I'm going to get a few of these wrong on purpose so that you can see how it scores it. Okay. Let's see. So let's run through these real quick. We'll put all of these. And what's great about these is some of the answers can be found directly in the reading selection, but others of them require that students draw an inference and use the best evidence to support their answer. In addition to that, it's going to increase our students' critical thinking skills and help them with their vocabulary development as well. Okay. And I'm going to do these last two and then we'll score it and see how we did here. Okay. So I got a 70 here. I got a bunch of them wrong, right? But it shows me which ones I got wrong and which ones I got right, the answers that I put, and the actual correct answer. So the student and the teacher can see this. When schools or school districts purchase either a school-wide site license or a district-wide site license, a teacher can actually upload their entire class roster, and the student and the teacher can track the student's progress across all of these activities and assessments. So now we've done the vocabulary assessment, we've done the comprehension assessment. The third activity is a grammar review. For the grammar review, students are charged with the responsibility of taking this content from the story with these 5 sentences and rewriting each sentence, adding capitalization, punctuation, and changing verb tense where necessary. Now, we don't have time for me to type all of this over, but you're gonna see that I'm gonna get a 0 because I'm gonna submit it and I didn't follow the full instruction. But this is an opportunity for students to improve their grammar skills, their understanding of capitalization, punctuation, when and where to add a verb or change verb tense, all right? So the grammar review is the third of the 4 activities for each of the 90 reading selections, okay? And then the last activity, if we're gonna have a reading revolution, well, guess what, everybody? We also have to have a writing revolution. So we have a writing prompt to go along with each of the reading selections. This one says, Ahmed Baba wrote 42 books. If you were going to write a book, what would it be about? Would it be fiction or nonfiction? Who would the book be for? What age range or audience? Describe and explain. So again, we have 90 reading selections and 4 activities for all of the selections. The reading selections are about African and African American heroes and sheroes, both ancient and modern, okay? And again, for those that need the extra assistance, you as the educator get to go on the journey of cultural competence with your students. So it's a beautiful opportunity for everyone to be enriched in the process, okay? So now what I'm gonna do is go back to my PowerPoint to share a few other critical points before we wrap up my session, okay? I hope that you're enjoying this and I hope that you're learning a lot in the process, and we'll have an opportunity for you to get your own subscription to Reading Revolution online shortly, okay? So why do we need this? We know, according to a recent article in the New York Times, children in every demographic group have been affected by the pandemic, but Black and Hispanic children, as well as those from low-income families, those with disabilities, and those that are not fluent in English have fallen the furthest behind. We know that there was an educational pandemic before the health pandemic, that our children were struggling with reading prior to that as well. But what's really interesting about that is it wasn't a problem with ability. The problem was with engagement, which led to problems with achievement. the fact that much of the curricula was not culturally relevant or responsive. And when the curriculum and methods of instruction are not relevant and responsive, then children tend to mentally check out. And I'm sure that you've seen this look on a child's face many times before. So it's not that our children are not intelligent, not that they're not capable, but they must have a culturally relevant and responsive curricula. And this is one of the reasons why Reading Revolution Online is so important. Well, let's talk about impact. We just released Reading Revolution Online this past August. These are the responses that we've been getting from administrators, literally from New York to California, who have gone through this demonstration similar to what I'm giving you right now. And they said, Dr. Akua, we've never seen anything like this before, and our students need it, okay? Not only do our students need it, our teachers need it so that they can be more culturally competent. Then one leader recently told me, Dr. Akua, I've been looking for something like this and didn't even know it, okay? So, you know, great teachers and leaders are always looking for great strategies and resources to utilize. They didn't know that this was available until I had shared it with them. And then she went on to explain how the unique needs of her students were not being met because the curriculum was not culturally relevant. And watch this, though her teachers were deeply committed and hardworking, they had not been properly prepared to meet the students' needs. So I'm not here to come down on students, on teachers, because teachers can't teach what they don't know and haven't been prepared for. This is our opportunity to prepare teachers to be in compliance with the Florida African American history legislation. But in addition to that, Dr. Marcus Jackson, who is the the Chief Academic Officer of Lancaster Unified School District, said something very interesting. He said, as educators, our goal is to ignite a flame that burns for knowledge. For years, Reading Revolution has been able to ignite that flame for many of my students by improving reading levels by 1 to 2.5 grade levels in a year. I strongly recommend this resource. Now, Dr. Jackson wrote that about the book Reading Revolution. We haven't received the data yet from him using Reading Revolution Online, and we suspect, because that's even more engaging, that the scores will be even higher. So he had brought me in to do professional development with the 14 underperforming schools that he was in charge of in another district. And he was able to improve all of those schools utilizing Reading Revolution and the culturally relevant professional development that we provide. So the impact is very, very clear, but there's still more data on the way. What are the advantages? Reading Revolution Online is great for in-person classroom instruction, all right? So a teacher could project this up on the screen and go through the activities with the students, or students could be on their own individual laptops or tablets in the classroom working at their own pace. But guess what? It's also great for remote classroom instruction. Just as I did a demonstration for you, a teacher can put it up on the screen and have students working remotely, right? It's also great for homework or independent work and allowing parents as well as teachers and students to track the students' progress. We know because of the visuals and the interactive nature of this, that there is for those students that utilize Reading Revolution Online. So as I begin to conclude and wrap things up, I want to let you know that we are very excited to roll this out and make this available. As was mentioned in my introduction by Dr. Knowles, we've been doing a great deal of work in the state of Florida for many years now. As a matter of fact, since 2005, believe it or not. I can't believe it's been that long. And so we're very pleased to make this available to you now as well. I'm going to turn it back over to Dr. Bernadette Kelly Brown in just a moment, and I'm going to put a link in the chat box that will allow you, if you desire,
Are you ready?
To get Reading Revolution Online at a deeply discounted price. Actually, I'm turning it back over to Roxy Hall. Great to see you, Roxy.
Awesome, awesome. Great job, Dr. Akua. Let's snap it up for Dr. Akua. One of his favorite sayings is, if you had an amazing time, is it I say, Dr. Akua? I say. Yes, yes. And we're going to put that in the chat. So if you gain something from Dr. Akua's experience, we want to say, I say. Dr. Akua, you want to spell I say for them? Because you want to tell them a little bit about what I say means, Dr. Akua.
Yes, ashe means I agree. It means let it be so. And it's spelled A-S-E with an accent. If you can't find the accent, you can spell it A-S-H-E. That's great. I see you, Helen Moffitt. That's wonderful. Ashe.
All right, thank you. All right, thank you. I know I want to get it. I wanted to get it right. I want to get it right, Dr. Kelly. That's why I brought Dr. Akua back in. What an informative session. We really appreciate that. Now, what the African American History Task Force has done for us is that I think, Dr. Kelly, that the exemplary schools can get excited right now because they have the opportunity to win a 1-year subscription to Reading Revolution. If you can get excited about that, you need to snap it up, exemplary schools. Look at Dr. Wright. There we go. There we go. So what we're going to do right now, you see Sabrina smile. And what we're going to do right now is Camille is about to bring up her screen. Camille is about to bring up her screen, and we are going to actually do a drawing, and let's look at these exemplary schools: Leon County, Hillsborough, Gadsden, Duval, Broward, Alachua, St. Lucie, Pinellas, Miami-Dade, Marion County. Look at these schools. We're going to spin the wheel, Dr. Akua. We're going to spin the wheel, and we're going to see which district is going to win that. Look at Dr. Wright, that Reading Revolution. What? There we go, Broward County Public Schools. Let's snap it up, Broward County Public Schools. We know we have a great deal of educators here from Broward County. Broward County, if you're in the house, make some noise in the chat. If you're in the house, say, I'm from Broward County. If you're in the house, woo-hoo for Broward County. Broward County, make some noise in the chat if you're from Broward County. We know a lot of you are participating and supporting this event, as well as our other exemplary districts. And so thank you so much. We also have another opportunity. Since we're in the winning spirit right now, we have another opportunity for us to do a little bit of winning right now. And I am actually going to ask a couple of questions, and you will have the opportunity. Remember at the beginning of this, we talked about this being an interactive experience, right? We talked about this being an interactive experience. And I know a lot of you have been listening and getting some good stuff. But so if you need to move around and stand up while you're doing this part, go ahead and do what you need to do. Some chair activities or whatever you need to do, go ahead and do what you need to do. But we're going to ask 2 questions. And once we ask those questions, we want you to put the answer in the chat. If you get the correct answer, in the chat, you'll be entered into a drawing. And so, and then we will let you know from that drawing a little bit at the end of tomorrow who actually won, or at the end of today. I have to ask Sabrina a little bit later about that. But you will be entered into a drawing to win. And just to make sure my chat folk are active, we're going to post the questions in the chat as well in the section from the organizers. So we want you to be engaged in the chat, in the app, as well as on the screen. Are you all ready? Are you ready? If you're ready, say I'm ready. If you're ready, say I'm ready in the chat. Let me see if your fingers are working. I'm ready. Love it. First question is this. We have to have it precisely, verbatim, exactly right. What is this year's Summer Institute theme? Go. What is this year's Summer Institute theme? Go ahead. I don't see the answers in the chat. Let's see. Do we have any answers coming up in the chat? Let's see. Do we have any answers coming up in the chat? I think we do. I'm going to give you a cut, and we want as many people as possible to answer. I see the answers coming in. And this year's Summer Institute theme is, drum roll somebody. I can't do it. Come on, doctor. Somebody help me. Drum roll. The answer is Connections and Contributions, Teaching Authentic History. Can you get excited about that theme? And we're already gaining that thus far. Can we get excited about that theme? What is Connections and Contributions, Teaching Authentic History? Thus far, we're going to do a checkup from the neck up at 10:32. We have a little extra time right here. What have you gained thus far? And I'm also going to invite you right now. We just had a powerful section from Dr. Akua. There's still a little bit time left within Dr. Akua, your session. If there are any specific questions you have for Dr. Akua, based on the information that he gave during his session, please put them in the question and answer section. Dr. Akua may be able to actually answer some of these questions. So Dr. Akua, if you will pay close attention to the Q&A box, if there are any questions, be sure, don't put your questions in the chat. We want you to put your questions in the Q&A section, all right? So as you're looking at that, because knowledge is power, and one of the things that the task force has done for us is provided a great deal of resources and information in this today and tomorrow. So we need to take this opportunity so that we can again positively impact the lives of those that we are charged with. That means our students, our families, our community, all educate, put them in the Q&A section. All right, drum roll, we have our second giveaway question. Are you ready? You ready, Sam? Ready? The second question, and this is one you may have to think about, you may have to Google, you can use your phone, whatever you want to do, right? The second question is, what year was the Florida Statute 100.34228 passed into law? Oh, hey, listen, Dr. Akua, you see that? They started answering that question.
Yes.
Even before I finished.
Well,
I finished.
I had to know that, Roxy, because that was the subject of my doctoral dissertation. And so I did extensive research on that.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
So we do
Wonderful.
have one hand raised. That's Tamika Morris. I think she had her hand raised, and if we could allow her to ask her question either in the chat or either allow her to speak.
If she's in the gallery, is she in the gallery, Dr. Kelly?
It seems like she is. Her hand was raised a few moments ago.
Okay, so
it's in the Q&A as well. We got one from Michelle. We got one from Michelle Wright at 10:34. How do you know if your school district has the reading revolution? That's to you, Dr. Akua, while we get Tamika on. Mm-hmm.
We just released Reading Revolution this year, and it's being used in a number of school districts around the country and even internationally. But I don't believe we have any in the state of Florida just yet. So that's yet another reason why I'm very excited to be on here with you all today. And so, Tamika, your school and your school district should be the first then. Let's make that happen in addition to those that just won their membership. I'm going to also put my contact information in the chat box for those of you who want to have an extended conversation, or if you want me to do a demonstration for your principal, for your superintendent or other leaders in your district, you can just contact me at drakua@drakua.net. That's DRAKUA@drakua.net. I'm also going to put my phone number in case we need to have a longer or larger conversation. So, please take my information down and I'd be glad to do a demonstration for your leaders or for your teachers or for anybody who needs to see it. So thank you so much for that question.
Tamika Morris, are you ready?
That was my question, actually. I was trying to see if anybody else in Florida had been using it. So thank you.
Okay.
Right.
Thank you. Mm-hmm.
And let me ask Tamika, if you don't mind unmuting for just a moment again, let me ask you, what is it that you liked about it, or what do you see of value in it that may be helpful for those that you serve?
Well, I know that this year I was a after-school tutor, and it seems like this program could be something that our students could use in addition to our ELP. And also, we're looking for different clubs to start adding into our school. So it could be something that I'm inspired about, maybe a history club. Maybe this could be the route to reading through history. So it's just a couple of ways that I could possibly use it.
Yeah, I'm glad that you mentioned that, because for some people, they see it and they're like, this would be perfect for the language arts classroom. Others say it, oh man, this would be great for the reading classroom. Others say, oh wow, this is perfect for social studies. But in reality, it has interdisciplinary application. So there are scientists that are represented and talked about in Reading Revolution Online, mathematicians. So it is an interdisciplinary academic resource tool that can be used across the board. It can be used during the regular school day, but like you said, there are a number of schools and school districts that are using it with after-school programs, enrichment programs, Saturday school programs. So we just say, hey, get in where you fit in, use it where you feel it's necessary, but definitely use it because it's a powerful resource that can transform your entire school community. So thanks for sharing that.
All right, thank you, Dr. Akua. Sabrina, did you have a question or a comment? You unmuted, are you good?
Yes, I want to kind of go over our book giveaway. Welcome everyone, and thank you so much for being so enthusiastic in our chat with your answers and everything. So my name is Sabrina Shade. You probably have seen me on Whova, on our social media platforms. I just want to give you an overview of how you can win our book giveaway prizes at this year's Institute. Currently, we have our contest in Whova on our Instagram page, as well as here in our chat. So the rules of our giveaway is on our Instagram page, and I'm going to put the links of all of our social media platforms in the chat, so you can be able to go over and check out the rules and the requirements, just in case if you're haven't downloaded the app, you still have a chance to win one of our featured books this year. Thank you so much for joining us for this year's Institute. And also our book giveaway will last all the way until the end of our Institute. So don't worry, don't afraid that if you didn't get a chance this go around, there's still opportunity for you to win. Again, if you enter into the chat an answer that is correct, your name will be put into a drawing. And then from there, I will reach back out to you to let you know whether or not if you are indeed a winner. If you have any questions for me, just send it in via chat and I'll make sure that I respond to you. But welcome. And to all the winners that we have thus far, because we had winners, pre-Summer Institute winners on our Instagram and Whova app. Congratulations again. So thank you so much for joining us today.
All right, wonderful. Thank you. And again, let's do a sure enough in the chat. Snap for Sabrina, who's done again an outstanding job as a project coordinator. Taking lead at this institute, working with the amazing task force and just doing an amazing job. I already saw some people making some real snaps and saying some great things about you, Sabrina, and they're excited to put a face to the name. All the information that you've been putting out there, but you've done an amazing job, and we want to give you your flowers right now. There were also, again, we have a little bit of time. If you notice the agenda, we do, and this is informational. We had a couple of questions, Sabrina, that came in advance of the actual Institute, and I'm going to ask those questions right now. One of them was it pertained to the African American History Task Force overview that we had a little earlier. And that question was, besides let me get here, besides K post-secondary institutions, what other stakeholders are actively engaged in supporting the teaching of African American history? I see Dr. Wright has his hand up, and I know either probably Dr. Kelly or Dr. Wright may want to answer that, but Dr. Kelly unmuted. Again, I will ask that questions again for the good of the group. Besides K post-secondary institutions, what other stakeholders are actively engaged in supporting the teaching of African American history? Dr. Kelly.
Yes, thank you for that question. That's a great question. NAACP, very supportive, and they have an educational unit within NAACP. They are involved. We also have after-school programs that are not necessarily linked to schools themselves, but like Boys and Girls Clubs, you know, and those kinds of things. We also have some church groups that have engaged into the efforts of the African American history teaching. Many of you already know a lot of the things that we learned about the African community, African American community, came through our churches, our religious affiliations. So yes, there are other entities out there. We've also engaged with, and we'll hear from them through EverFi, through the sports community. You know, sports community got lots of money, and that is something in your community you might want to reach out to. Yes, Dr. Joseph Noel, the Divine Nine. We try to engage them as well so that we can share that rich history of African and African American history. Now, Dr. Noel had a question as well. Dr. Noel, you want to go ahead and ask your question? He put it in the Q&A, and then I'll go to Dr. Wright. Dr. Noel? I think he has to be unmuted, but while he does that, Dr. Wright, you have your hand up. You want to go ahead and ask your question?
No, I was just trying to put my hand in the chat, but no, I'm just overwhelmed with the information that we've received already today. Awesome, awesome institute.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you, Dr. Kelly Brown and Sabrina. Thank you so much.
Right.
Dr. Kelly, did you call me?
Yes, sir. Go ahead.
Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry. Someone had walked into my office here, so my apologies.
No worries, no worries. We were looking for other ways, other communities, and I know Palm Beach have other entities that are involved besides the K-12 arena. Who else are your partners that you work with?
Oh, here in Palm Beach County, you know, besides the K-12, we deal with various community organizations, the Coalition of Black Student Achievement, and do a lot of community engagement in addition to our local universities. So we have a standing and consistent partnership with also Florida Atlantic University here in Palm Beach County as well.
Thank you so much. Tracy Oliver, you have your hand up.
Hello, everybody. I'm so excited about this wonderful event. And I am from Duval County. As you know, we are an exemplary county. And I just want to share some of our current partnerships that we actually are engaged with. They have vetted in us, and they're very excited about our African American initiative and our exemplary status. We have our parent academy that's involved with us. Every month, we actually have a community engagement session by which we invite the entire community to come in. We have teachers, we have students, we have the parent engagement, we have university and professional partnerships. So the opportunity is limitless in terms of who you can bring in to help champion the work. So we're really excited. We're doing great things here in Duval County, and the possibilities are endless to actually spread the work and champion the work.
Ashe, ashe.
Ashe.
So Dr. Coggins, you got your hand up.
Yeah, you're on. Couple of things. On July the 4th, several churches have asked me to share this law with them. They've heard about it, so I'm going to be doing this all-day session with them. And I want to remind us that this month is Caribbean American History Month, and I've done a workshop with the Haitian community in Orlando. The mayor of Orlando was there, and they were not aware of the law, and they really spent a lot of time asking questions about it. And then my last thing is that tomorrow I'm going to be talking to a major mentoring program here in Volusia County, where we're going to be introducing the kids to a series that I'm going to be doing this summer on African and African American contributions. It's the community does not know about this information beyond the schools, and our job is trying to get that information out to them. So I thank you, Dr. Kelly, and others in terms of what you're doing.
Thank you so much, Ashe. All right. So I think there was one other question from Dr. Knoll. He's asked about Latin Americans. Is that what you, Dr. Knoll? The involvement, you know, there's legislation that talks about the Latin community as well being involved with teaching the history. And I just want to say, Dr. Coggins, I'm so happy to see that you're involving the Caribbean because, you know, that's part of the diaspora. That, you know, that before the slave ships came to the shores of Florida, North Carolina, South Carolina, they stopped in the Caribbean. They stopped in Haiti. They stopped in all along the way in order to have those people who were on their ships as cargo to work in the sugar plantations. So that's important to know that the Caribbean is part of this diaspora of people and of African and African American descent. Thank you so much. Brian Knowles, I see you have your hand up again.
Oh, yeah, just real quick, and that's thank you for driving that point home, because that's one of the things throughout our district that I really like to stress when it comes to our history and culture, and even when we talk about appropriate pedagogy for our students, is understanding the diversity that comes within Blackness, right? We're talking about an entire diaspora. Sometimes within education, we just treat Black as a monolith without really exploring the diversity and just the disparate cultures that exist within Blackness. You know, even here next week, we're doing our own summer institute locally here in Palm Beach County, which will be in person. And we make sure that we call it the African and Caribbean Studies Summer Institute, when we place emphasis on our Haitian student population. And also we're doing things to engage the community. I'm doing English speaking community forum, English speaking Caribbean community forum on one of those evenings as well. So that is a very important point. When we talk about the African diaspora, we got to think that out of the 115 million people that exist outside of Africa that are Black, you know, the vast majority of those people live in Latin America, which would be South America and the Caribbean. And we just got to really understand the diversity within our story, because it makes it much more dynamic by understanding there's so many different layers, and our story is so complex. And really considering the focal point of the entire diaspora versus just the monolith that we try to even pack African Americans in as well.
Thank you so much, Ashe. And thank you, Lorna. Yes, Puerto Rico is also part of that diaspora. I just recently visited Puerto Rico and just found it fascinating that how that island was one of the stops along the way as well. And their African community is part of it. That is what Puerto Rico is all about. You know, that's our 52nd state or 51st state, whatever, but they haven't gotten statehood yet, but they still are part of the African-American community. Are there any more questions, guys, or comments that you'd like for us? Virgin Islands, yes, so I would agree. St. Thomas, all of those, they're good. They're part of the diaspora. And that is something that we probably need to explore and in court and do a little bit more with. And we need your help. We don't know everything here at the African American History Task Force, but that's why we ask for members who are interested in serving on the task force so that we can make recommendations to the Florida Department of Education. Remember, we don't make law. We don't enforce the law. We just make recommendations about the law and how it is to be taught in our K-20 schools. So thank you everyone for engaging, for your questions and all of those. So, and I like at this time, before we move on to, like Roxy said, you need to stand up and take a break, guys. Get some water, you know, stretch your legs. We're not going anywhere. We will be here for you so that you can continue to learn. Now, did you learn a lot in this last couple of hours? We've been on now since 9 and it's almost 11. That's almost 2 hours. You have received a lot of knowledge during this time. And as Roxy said, you want to snap it up, give them credit, let them know that you appreciate it. And I see your hand, Dr. Coggins. You got one more thing to say.
Yes, one of the things that is very important that this task force is doing, there's the push for 1619, and 20 Africans arrive on the British Jamestown, Virginia. But that is not where our history begins. Our history goes back to the Olmecs, who were Africans from West Africa, who were there in the Americas, Mexico, and all of those areas, 5,000 BCE. So I think the connection is there. Plus, the law requires that we teach about African Americans, we teach about Hispanic, Latino, and women. So this is an opportunity, and Brian, hats off that your district, Palm Beach, is integrating something that is natural. When we look at the DNA, it is African blood, it is European blood, it is Native Indian blood that runs through what we call the Caribbean, Latin America, North America, and South America. So thank you, Dr. Kelly, for engaging us to broaden our thinking, because it's already the law. Now we have to come up with ways to teach it.
Exactly. Ashe. We don't have to stand on the corner with a postcard or a placard or any of that. We don't have to go out and strike. The law is already there. It is up to us to make sure that it's implemented. That's why we do this. We want our community to be aware that we have this law already. Let's hold our legislators accountable and hold us, the African American History Task Force, accountable as to getting that information out. And so that you have those resources to share with our young people. Our young people need this more than ever. They are more than just rappers. They are more than just sports people. We have so many rich heritage. We have such a large, rich heritage in math and science, in language, in writing, and literature. It's just a lot that we need to be able to share that it just has to be done, and we need your help. So thank you again. Ashe, everyone. And I am going to turn it back over to Roxy. Am I going to you? You know, I get lost. I can keep talking and talking and talking. I will turn it back over to you.
Oh, thank you, Dr. Kelly. And I think that where we are now, again, we're doing great this morning, and we're going to go over now, and we're going to actually bring on Dr. Michelle Gale at this point. We're going. Yes, I think that's who we are, Dr. Kelly. We're going to bring on Dr. Michelle Gale. Let's snap it up and welcome Dr. Gale.
Good morning, and good morning. I bring you greetings from Leon County Schools, which is one of the exemplary school districts in the state of Florida. It is my esteemed pleasure to introduce Dr. Jerkayan Chaudhry Graham. I know you've heard that name, but just in case you didn't, he is the 2019 Hillsborough County Teacher of the Year, and he was selected in July 2019 as the 2020 Florida Teacher of the Year, representing 74 districts and more than 195,000 professional educators in the state of Florida. During the 2019-2020 school year, Dr. Graham was on sabbatical from teaching and served as the Krista McAuliffe Ambassador for Education. In his role, he toured the state delivering motivational speeches and workshops focused on empowering teachers to create the most impactful learning experience possible for their students. I might say that he did come to Leon County several times, and I had the esteemed opportunity to see him each time. After serving as the Executive Director in the Office of Independent Education and Parental Choice for the Florida Department of Education for the past 2 years, Dr. Graham has transitioned to support turnaround schools throughout the state as the Executive Director of School Improvement. As an avid equity advocate, he also serves as the Vice Chair of the Florida Council on the Social Status of Black Men and Boys, as a member of the Education Committee and the Chair of the Mentorship Committee. He was also appointed by the Governor of Florida as a Commissioner for the Florida Commission of Community Service. He is a product of Hillsborough County Schools, where he recently served as the Director of Instrumental Studies at his alma mater, which is C. Leon King High School in Tampa, Florida. He holds a bachelor's and master's degree in music education from the University of Florida. He has a master's in educational leadership from Concordia University and a PhD in music from the University of South Florida. He is currently pursuing an ED in learning design and performance technology at the Florida State University and a DMA in conducting at the University of Florida. During his 11 years in Hillsborough County Public Schools, his students consistently demonstrated determination, focus, and tenacity as they earned a performance position in the prestigious Carnegie Hall. Serving as a past president in the Hillsborough Secondary Music Council and the founder of the Eastern Coalition of Music Directors, Dr. Graham travels around the state as an adjudicator for both the Florida Bandmasters and the Orchestra Association. In 2012, Dr. Graham was a finalist for the Hillsborough County Teacher of the Year and a semifinalist and quarterfinalist for the Grammy Music Educator of the Year in 2013 and 2020, respectively. He was acknowledged as a 2020 Life Changer of the Year award, as well as a recipient by the National Life Group. Dr. Graham has been honored as a 2020 USF Outstanding Young Alumni Award recipient and one of 40 Gators under 40 in 2021 for his work in the field of education. Dr. Graham is blessed in so many ways, but he's especially blessed to share his life with his wife, Casey, a former educator, and his daughter, Aaliyah. His passion to fight for all students to have an equitable educational experience while continuing his positively impact the next generation of world changers. Join me in welcoming the esteemed Dr. Graham to our conference. Dr. Graham, let's snap it up.
Thank you so much for that introduction, Dr. Gale. I really appreciate it. Good afternoon, everybody, or good morning. It's still the morning. I'm so excited to be with you all today. This is such an incredible time of year for me. I have had the fortune of being involved with the African American History Task Force since 2016, which was the year that Hillsborough County pursued becoming an exemplary district again. And I served on the curriculum writing team for that group, and then had the opportunity to go to the Summer Institute that year. And I got to tell you that my life was completely changed when I visited that event, because I got an opportunity to hear the Dr. Akua in person. And when I tell you it's one thing to get a chance to interact with him virtually as we are now, but getting an opportunity to really hear that passion and that power firsthand, there's nothing like it. And so I'm excited to be with you all today to discuss just something. I know it's listed as we're going to talk about music, but we're going to incorporate it into the curriculum and whatnot. And so our African American history and music in the K-12 curriculum. When we look at that, there we go. The first question, why this and why now? And it's so important as we begin to pursue and begin to discuss the importance of adhering to the Florida statute, that we understand that the reason it exists is to correct past omissions and inaccuracies about African-American heritage and culture. It's also to avoid African-American history as a 1-month add-on supplement. We don't need to even address the fact that African-American Heritage Month is the shortest month of the year. There's so many different things that we could address with that, but confining that to 1 month just simply is not representative. We've heard so often this morning that you can't teach what you don't know. Full transparency, my family didn't teach me anything about African-American heritage when I was a child, but you can't teach what you don't know. And it really wasn't until I got an opportunity to be at the Summer Institute that I really started to engage with that rich history when we start dating back to Kemet and just those ancient cultures that Dr. Akua so eloquently expresses and teaches on. But understanding how it is to be a Black man in an American society is so important. But when we grow up and don't have people who look like us standing in front of us, it doesn't always offer that opportunity. And I think one of the things that we run into is that people assume that because we're Black, that we understand where we come from, because our white counterparts understand their history and their heritage and where they come from. But they negate the fact that our history was erased and that we don't have the same opportunities to trace back our heritage that they do. Also, to teach African-American history is to teach American history. These are not separate elements. These are one and the same. And African-Americans have made significant contributions to American culture itself. You can go into any content, you can go into any area, and you will see the positive contributions of African-Americans. We talk about that exemplary county status. We have 12 out of 67 districts. As Dr. Kelly Brown has mentioned multiple times, while it's great to celebrate those 12, what about those other 55 districts that are not making an explicit effort as per our statute and the opportunity for exemplary status in order to ensure that all students are receiving that representative education? It's the law. We adhere to the law on so many other things. This is just another area whenever the law should be reinforced. And finally, representation matters. Representation matters, representation matters. I always reflect back on my interview process for State Teacher of the Year. And I will never forget the very last questions, which was the very last question, which was asked by our very own Dr. Burns, who is in here today. And it was the question I didn't want to be asked. And it's the why me question. And ultimately, the response that I gave was that it's important for the lowest performing statistical demographic in the state, which is the African-American male, to see someone who looks like them in a position that is considered successful. When you don't have that physical representation in front of you, you aren't always aware of what is possible. A former student of mine came in and we had a conversation, and he said, I don't really understand why there is a BET. Why do you need a station dedicated to Black entertainment? And I said, okay, well, I want you to imagine you're flipping through the stations, and the only thing you see on every single station is only Black people, Black families. You have a token white person in here, but on the news, it's only Black people. Everything you switch to, then you're going to want something that is representative of who you are. And that's what Black people experience day in and day out. There isn't an equal representation on that. And so that is such an important aspect, not only with regard to what we see in society, but also more so in education itself. And so we've seen this already, and we've identified it, but I wanted to give you this exact reference so that you can look it up. If you ever are looking for how to identify statute, a great website is the flsenate.gov, and it has a very easy layout and a search function for how to find everything as it relates to statute. So for my teachers out there, as Dr. Burns said earlier, who are not always used to that opportunity to go and understand statute, I encourage you to explore that website, because there are a lot of things educationally that exist that we are just unaware of because of lack of knowledge, because we're not exposed to that. But when we start hearing about the decisions that are made and we start hearing about policies that change and different things like that, those changes come from a statutory change or a bill that's been introduced that is now becoming law. And so the best way to be able to understand how to be informed is to make sure to keep up with that. Guilty as charged, I had no idea, and this was not something that I pursued when I was in the classroom. It wasn't until I became a member of the department that I had the opportunity to really start learning about how to navigate that area. But it only serves as a more powerful tool for you within the classroom to understand truly where that statute comes from. We also, many of the things that we've discussed today, and you heard about the importance of 1994, all stem from the Multicultural Education Law of 1992. And so I really think it's important for us to look at this quote that was pulled, that Florida state legislators implemented the Florida Multicultural Education Act or law in 1992, recognizing that in order to live, learn, and work in a pluralistic world, children of this culturally diverse state need to build an awareness of their own cultural, and ethnic heritage. Develop an understanding, respect, and appreciation for the history, culture, and contributions of other groups, and eliminate personal and national ethnocentrism so they understand that a specific culture is not intrinsically superior or inferior to another. We discussed, you heard Dr. Kelly Brown say it, you heard Dr. Wright say it earlier. When we have teachers of color, when we have education based specifically on culturally appropriate information, and you're informing everyone, then they understand how, although we have these different uniquenesses, that we are all working together, and that we are all human, that we are all, we were meant to share, we're meant to interact together. And so that's something that's very important. And so we have it in law, and we have the intentionality. So now it's our job to make sure that that is actually being implemented. When we talk about African-American history with regard specifically to music, we have to understand that all American music has origins and influences in African-American culture. And so with us taking this turn into the music specific elements, this is a medium that is generated within our country based off of those African-American contributions. When you look at blues, dance music, jazz, R&B, music of the churches, they laid the foundation for our country music today, our rock and roll, and even heavy metal. Every genre that we celebrate here in America comes from African-American culture. Here are some names of key contributors. Lucky Melinder, Sister Rosetta Sharp. I'm sure most of us should recognize Little Richard. And then Roy Hamilton is actually a name that some of you may also recognize because there's been a lot of discussion fairly recently about whether or not Elvis was copying his style and his songs whenever he rose to popularity. Now, there is a lot of information on Elvis's early life that demonstrates that he actually was a student of music. And when I say that, not the formal sense, but he would travel to different nightclubs and things where he would listen to the greats, the Dukes, and all of these musicians. He'd go and he'd talk with them and he'd learn. And so it wasn't so much that he stole what he was doing. He did imitate and he emulated and he copied and he made it into something that became his own, but it did stem from that influence that he saw before. And there are various records demonstrating that he did in fact sing these songs from Roy Hamilton, and there's some conversation on whether or not it was agreeable or not, but these are those forefathers that helped to establish that. Now, when we talk about music specifically, we talk about it being the universality of music. It is, but some believe that it is the universal language. Regardless of where you go around the globe, if you put a piece of music in front of people from varying ethnicities in various countries, they will be able to perform the music because the notation is all the same, because the understanding is all the same. So music itself is an opportunity for us to engage and break down cultural barriers. It's a uniquely human activity. While you do hear about whales singing and dolphins using their echolocation, different things, we're the only creature on this globe that not only creates and interacts with music, but we share it on a daily basis. When was the last time you went to a silent film? When was the last time you were shopping and you didn't hear music being used in the store? And just kind of an FYI, they're using that against you. It is a tool for those stores that want you to stay and linger a little bit longer, like a Publix. They're going to have more slow music that is going to cause you to want to stay longer. Whenever there's something that's trying to get you through, like a lot of the mall stores, the music will be louder and it'll be faster so that you won't want to stay for too long, so they can get you in and out. But it is something that has been studied and is used on a normal basis. It serves a myriad of purposes with varying powers. We've heard about the healing ability of music and how we have the music therapy for individuals who suffer brain damage. It's also used as an element for memory repair. With a lot of our geriatric patients and our older populations, music is used not only as a conditional healing therapy, it's also used to regain various motor-based skills. And so music in and of itself offers opportunities to do different things. It gives you the opportunity because you have that level of engagement that is increased because it's interactive, because it actually invests all of the senses at once. It also offers that opportunity for differentiated instruction. Within my classroom, we would always talk about the fact that we're not only learning visually, we're also learning orally, kinesthetically. All of them are happening at the same time. And that's one of the things that makes music such a powerful instructional tool. It is the cross-section of educational domains. For my classroom, whenever we would cover different subjects and covering different pieces, I would often tie in what was happening in other classes, psychology classes, reading classes, social studies classes, and we'll get into that in a little bit, but different ways to do cross-curricular work so you're reinforcing the information that's being learned over the course of time. It engages everyone regardless of your background. Once again, that opportunity for that differentiated instruction. And music itself connects us to our past, our present, and our future. We understand that specifically in the African-American community, when we talk about the slave songs, when we talk about those different hymns from the churches, when we talk about those different methods that were used as shaded or covered communications, when we talk about how that music has changed and what it represents now, and to what we're doing in the future, that music always carries some type of message and some type of cultural relevance for us. Now, when we're looking at music and education, one of the first tools, it is one of the first tools that we've ever employed whenever we teach. And so we talk about, how did you learn your alphabet? I can almost guarantee you that everybody on here didn't learn sitting in front of something and saying A, B, C, D, E, because you probably learned it before you could actually read. And so we learned that through song, A, B, C, D, E, F, G. It's that thing that is connected. When were you introduced to rhyming words? Also, most likely through song. Hickory dickory dock, the mouse ran up the clock. You think about those different ways that now it sticks with you. And there are certain things that you learned via song that you'll never forget. There are elements that you haven't heard a song for years, but it comes on the radio or you hear it on your Spotify, and all of a sudden you go back to it and you sing all the words. It's because music also has the power for retention, and it also gives you the opportunity for repetition, which reinforces the staying power and the longevity of that information. And then, how do you spell banana? How do you spell glamorous? How do you spell independent? Most of us, whenever you hear those specific words, you're probably going B-A-N-A-N-A-S or I-N-D-E-P-E-N-D-E-N-T. There are always those songs that are going to not only assist you with how to spell those, but they're that reinforcement element. And so you think about that power of music. And I want to use another example of this song where when you hear this, it'll take everyone back to a different place, but it takes you back to somewhere specific. And if I were to give you this song from early on, so we're talking 80s, 90s is when this was popular. And actually probably 70s, 80s, 90s, it's fairly aged, but the song is timeless. Once again, linking you to your past, your present, and then your future, because it has become a theme song. But someday I'll wish upon a star and wake up where the clouds are far behind me, where troubles melt like lemon drops away above the chimney tops. That's where you'll find me. Somewhere over the rainbow, bluebirds fly. Birds fly over the rainbow. Why? Then oh, why can't I? For everyone, you hear that song and it makes you think about something very specific. Whether it be if you were old enough to be able to see that in the theater during its release, whether it has now stands for linking you to something else here in your present. Whether for me, it just is that continuous reminder of the why and the reason that I continue to pursue that equitable educational experience for all students to pursue their best version of themselves. Whatever it is, it connects you to something, and that's that power of music. Music assists with information retention, internalization, and repetition, as we talked earlier. And these are all elements that are found within executive functions, which those functions are cognitive processes in your mind, including planning, working memory, processing speed, which memory helps to, or music helps to activate those things. And then they serve as entry points. And so you use that music in order to introduce new content, to introduce new people, to introduce different things, to draw connections. And this can be for that new curricular content, as we mentioned, or if you're going to take an opportunity to introduce a specific person or specific African-American element into your classroom, regardless of the content domain, then you're able to do that in that situation, using that as part of your medium. And so when we look at African-Americans across component, at first it's important that we understand that the Individuals with Disability Education Act very clearly outlines what the core subjects are within our nation. And those subjects include English, reading or language arts, math, science, foreign languages, civics and government, economics, arts, history, and geography. So whenever we start talking about, oh, well, music's not a core subject, and oh, this class isn't a core subject, well, that's actually not true according to the government, the US government. All of those elements that are listed here are in fact core subjects. And so they all need to be approached from that lens of being sure that we're educating, that we're using those, and that we are teaching, but based off of our standards in all of those courses. And so with that, it's important for us to identify different elements and key individuals from each of those component areas. And once again, you don't know what you don't know, but these are something that are very easy to build in. And so when you think about our ELA, which we can talk about, I think this one is probably the easiest subject when it comes to identifying key contributors from the African-American community. And so I've put 3 for each of these, but you've got Phyllis Wheatley, your James Baldwin, who has begun to rise again in popularity in terms of individuals who are pursuing his literature. Zora Neale Hurston, someone who it should be taught throughout our schools here in Florida, considering that she was based out of Eatonville, and many of her books are specific to regions in Florida. So that is something that is uniquely a part of that Florida heritage that would align very clearly with Statute 1003.43. You look at mathematics. You have Benjamin Banneker. You have Albert Frank Cox, who was the first mathematics PhD, first African-American mathematics PhD in the world. You have Euphemia Lofton Haynes, who was the first Black female mathematics PhD recipient. So these are individuals who can be used and who can be implemented and infused within your curricular subject, your content area, as you're starting to explain and move through your curriculum. Our science, you have Fern Hunt, Valerie Thomas, Percy Julian. In our foreign languages, Lewis Howard Latimer. How many knew that W.E.B. Du Bois taught French? Lillian Ivanti. Civics, General Colin Powell, John Lewis, Barbara Jordan. I mean, this is another area where that list can definitely be found and expanded very easily. In economics, Dania Francis, Peter Q. Blair, Jacobo Williams, and these individuals are currently functioning, economists here in our nation that are peers and that are pillars and leaders within that field. Within the arts, you've got Ralph Ellison, you have Duke Ellington, Jacob Lawrence. So we have, with Ralph Ellison, you have a novelist. With the Duke, you know that he's a musician. With Jacob Lawrence, you have a painter. So you can find them from the various elements within there. Within our history, Shirley Chisholm, Dred Scott, Frederick Douglass, A lot of those other members, when I was in school, we only learned about the big three at the time. And I've been quite removed from K-12 in terms of being a student, but we learned about Martin Luther King, Harriet Tubman, and Rosa Parks. And those were the three, and we learned about them in February, and then that was it. And so being exposed to those other names who are representative of other subjects is so important. And then with geography, Dr. Keith Yearwood, Dr. Ariana Marie Planey, James Chuma, just to name a few. And so these names obviously come with a lot of information that you can look up and then incorporate them into your teaching practices. But just imagine just taking these three names and infusing them into your educational practice as you're getting to various subjects and different things, so that students are seeing that they're represented in your content area, will provide for an opportunity to make the material more relevant, more applicable, and they'll be able to connect more because they see themselves in what they're learning. And that really is how you make learning relevant. And so what does infusion look like? Well, it has to be intentional in the lesson plan design. You have to interweave the information into the instruction. It has to be meaningful, relevant, and applicable, and it can't be an afterthought. So it can't be like, oh yeah, so here we're learning about Duke Ellington, and all right, we're moving on. It's got to be something to where you are infusing them into the information, tying it back in, and then revisiting the information the same way that we would with any other type of content that we use. And so one way that I did that whenever I was a teacher, as I mentioned, we were playing a piece called A Movement for Rosa. So it's about Rosa Parks. And so as we're doing that, we're having discussions, discourse, and we use Socratic seminar as well to talk about civil rights and the current state of cultural relationships and ethnic relationships in our country. And it so happened that we were learning this at the same time as the history teacher was talking about the bus boycott. And so we were able to tie that together to collaborate. And so then we also pulled in some of the other content areas to where I had my students go and look for other Rosa Parks specific media that did not have to do with concert band music or specific with the information that they were learning in the history class. And so they would go out and they would found poems about Rosa. They found books, they found songs about Rosa, which of course, many of them just went to the Outcast song. But that got an opportunity for the students to have a more rich and in-depth learning experience while we were engaging within our core content. And so opportunities like that to make it intentional have to be done in a specific manner. And so the best example that I could give you for how to incorporate music, and I think it's important that we're looking at this as a dichotomy. So what I've been discussing so far is how to have specific people in representation, but also I mentioned earlier how music is a tool to be able to engage and to increase learning. Well, when I was an undergrad, I had the opportunity to intern at Duval Elementary, which was the Academy of Fine Arts in Alachua County. And it was there that I had the chance to meet Gloria Jean Merricks. And Miss Merricks was one of the most incredible teachers that I had the opportunity to observe and to work with. She was a 5th grade math teacher, and the school had actually just received an F in 2001 and 2002. And during that time, Miss Merricks was not teaching all the students in 5th grade math. And what she did was she changed the entire way that she approached the teaching of her math concepts, both the vocabulary, the formulas, the different things. She needed to find a way that was more engaging. She needed to find a way that would increase retention, and in such a way that the students not only would remember, but then they'd also be able to apply it to the information that they are receiving. Well, back then we were using the FCAT as our form of assessment, and they went from an F to then receiving an A in 4 out of the next 6 years, based off of their one of the immediate factors of that was the elevation and the increase and the gains in learning from their mathematics students. And so Unfortunately, Miss Merrick's passed away. But after she passed, the Lassiter Center at UF did a documentary on her. And so I wanted to share with you just the trailer from this video that will give you a glimpse and give you a look into just how Miss Merrick's incorporated music into her daily classroom instruction.
Early on, she was just an okay teacher. She wasn't a great teacher. And then she had a profound realization. If she expected to have transformational change happen in her students, then she needed to transform herself.
And I said, we have an F. I just got a call that we received an F on the FCAT. And she just turned, it was the strangest look on her face too.
She, I think, just tripled her commitment to the students and their families. She used music and movement and chanting to teach math.
I just describe her as a genius in terms of the way she was able to capture the imagination in math, no doubt. When FCAT came back around and kids was relaxed, everybody was happy, ready for the FCAT, and the schools came out and they say Duval's an A school, and like chills went through everybody.
Duval Elementary in East Gainesville is, of course, one of the state's Cinderella stories.
The success is startling here. It's just almost beyond imagination.
She used to have headaches. You see the water in her eye because her head hurt just that bad. And she'll go and still teach, still sit on her feet all day, teach.
And so you hear the verbiage, you hear the words that are being used, the vocabulary terms just in some of those clips and the formulas and different things. And one of the key elements that was mentioned there and the key terms for Miss Merrick's as a teacher was transformational change. And that's something that Dr. Akua talks about all the time, the importance of being a transformational educator. It's not just about teaching them in order to pass the test. You are making changes in our students' lives that allow them to be more positive contributing members to society itself. And so that's an element that is so important to understand. And when you help your students to understand the importance of the education and you make it relevant and applicable, then they take that information and it increases their amount of ownership. And so these are opportunities, as we mentioned, or as I mentioned earlier, when we think back to how we learned some of those initial concepts, and we think back to maybe some teachers who may have incorporated some elements of music, those are the elements, those are the things that remain with our students. So finding ways, determining different methods to incorporate music into social studies, into your reading courses, into your sciences. These are different ways, another tool to help engage the students and really reinforce those principles. Right now, you've got different shows that are coming out. I believe it's Gracie's Corner right now, that is taking a lot of the those older songs that we grew up with, the ABC songs and different things, and making them and transforming them using more urban beats and things like that are more applicable to the current students. And when we think about those students and where they've been, the current classroom and what they've gone through for these past 2 years, we are looking and seeing that there's been an increase in not only discipline concerns, but also the student engagement, or decrease in the engagement and an increase in behavior concerns. But that's because they don't want to sit down and just be taught at. So looking for more methods and more opportunities to increase that level of engagement, which then provides that opportunity for ownership, but then also more successful teaching and learning strategies is something that's so very, very important. And so just hopefully I left you with some tools and some things to think about as you continue to move forward. While music itself is something that's so very important, obviously I think so because I taught it for so long and am still teaching music. It's something that can be applied across curriculum through collaboration, which yields positive results, and just so happens a byproduct is that it also increases student achievement and learning. So thank you all so much for the opportunity to be here. I wanted to thank the task force for a chance to join you all today. Again, like as I mentioned, this is always one of my favorite times of year. The Institute was so transformational in my life, in my perspective, in the way that I view education, in my role as a Black male in education, that getting the opportunity to connect every year has just been such an empowering thing for me. So just wanted to offer that thank you to Dr. Kelly Brown and all the members of the task force.
We thank you. You are such an inspiration.
Wow.
I mean, I can't even begin to even say that to think about the music. I mean, I know I learned my ABCs by singing them. Okay, I don't know about you guys, but yes, it's not a new concept, but it's one that needs to be revisited. Thank you, Dr. Graham. We love you and we appreciate all the resources that you have given. Sabrina, we're gonna turn to you. I see you got your hand up.
Yes, Dr. Kelly, I had a question in the chat regarding Dr. Graham's presentation. Will your slides be available for the attendees?
Yes, ma'am. I can definitely make them available. If Sabrina, I'll get them to you. And if you'd like to then pass them out, or I will also put my contact information into the chat so that if anybody would like to reach out, then they can do that as well.
Thank you, Dr. Graham. Awesome presentation. Yes, thank you.
All right,
thank you so much. So back to you, Roxy.
Snap, snap. I'm telling you what, snap, snap. On top of amazing information, look at Dr. Wright. On top of amazing information, we had some vocal entertainment, just saying. We had some vocal entertainment as well. What we're going to do right now is it's extraordinarily important that we are on point and meeting the goals of the task force and the needs as it relates to what our tasks are with the African American History Force Task Force. And so what we're going to do now is we will be launching a poll after each session to get your feedback. Remember, this is an interactive and engaging experience. We're going to launch a poll. The poll has already been launched within the app. Within the app, the poll has already been launched. Many of you are responding to it, and we're now going to also launch the poll from within the chat feature now. So right now, you should see the poll, and you should be able to actually answer the question to the poll within this feature now. So that has happened within this feature, and if you check your app, you have actually been given the poll on the app as well. So we're going to ask you, Camille, are we at a point that they can take the survey now? Okay, very good, very good. So you have a couple of different ways. Remember, we made this investment in the app so that this app will be an avenue for you to network, connect, and engage, not just today, but go forward for the rest of the year as we look towards the things that we've gained. And back to the answer, Sabrina, about Dr. Graham, we can actually upload his slide presentation within the app as well. So you will be able to get his information, click on his session, and get his materials from the app, as well as his video. All of those things will be in the app feature. In this modern day of technology, this is something that's super important to Dr. Kelly Brown, is that we engage in the technical, that is where we are. in the 21st century. So we want to infuse that, just like we want to infuse African American history. We need to understand the importance of technology. So we want you to utilize those resources. The task force has made an investment in this app, so we want you to continue. So if you, I think that Camila, we're going to continue going with the poll for a minute here. So we want everyone to do that. It's critical information for the task force, and we will. Just recently, I also posted another download link, Sabrina, to the app in the chat. So if you have not downloaded it, you still have the opportunity. And remember, there's actually, for those of us, because people have asked me this, for those of us that don't feel comfortable on our mobile device, you can do everything within the online, in the online stream as well, the online portal of the app. Does that make sense? You can do everything as well on that online portal of the app that you can do within the app. So we just want you to know that. I think that we are at a point, you find out what's going on with the different information. You will be able to come here to this page, and you will be able to actually download the information as it relates to the speaker from today. Does that make sense? So we're super excited. I think we're going to move on after this poll closes. We're done with the poll. We're going to share the results. No, not sharing the results, and we're going to go ahead, and now we're going to move on to Matt. And Matt, I don't want to say your name incorrectly. I'm going to say Matt K. Y'all snap it up for Matt K. Snap it up for Matt K. I'm not jacking it up, Matt. I'm not doing it. Snap it up for Matt Che. Snap it up for Dr. Graham. Give him his flowers in the chat. Say to him in the chat, and then we're going to move on to Matt K. Matt.
I'm not sure if Matt Keurig is on or not. Do we see him? Because I see Mr. Brooks is waiting. I see that beautiful face, Mr. Brooks, and we're trying to get someone to give you your props and introduce you accordingly.
Thank you for getting that name for me, Keurig. Thank you so much, Dr. Kelly.
No worries. I mean, look, I taught for a long time in the 712 arena, so I don't mind sharing. All right. Do we see Matt Keurig anywhere? He's from EverFi. Oh, okay. All right. Now look.
He's one.
You see him?
Yes, I see him.
Okay. He needs to unmute and go ahead and do his part. Did you all bring him in as a, a lot of times, you know what? Technology
He's in.
He's in. Okay, Matthew.
Yes, well, what we may do, I think that Sabrina actually has the biographical information if we want to go ahead and have Sabrina to go ahead and do that bio as she's getting ready, or whoever's getting ready. Again, as we're waiting for that next piece, if you have gained something, not if you, let's put something in the chat that we have gained from this experience thus far as we are making ready for Derek Brooks, as we're preparing our mind, for Derek Brooks. Let's put in the chat, what have you gained thus far, right, Derek? I see you smiling. We have to have a fertile foundation in order to get information to grow, right? We have to have a fertile foundation.
Well, it's all good. It's good.
Okay. All right, Sabrina, I think you're going to go ahead and introduce him. I think Matt had to probably step away. He's in, but he's not answering.
Okay, so I'm pulling up this information. So, Mr. Brooks, it's a pleasure that you're joining us this morning. Thank you so much for being a part of our Summer Institute 2022. And I want to share with you our keynote speaker of today, Mr. Derek Brooks. He's the founder of Derek Brooks Charity. Derrick Brooks was drafted by Tampa Bay Buccaneers in the first round, 1995 NFL draft, where he remained to play his entire 14-season professional career. He is widely considered one of the best linebackers in NFL history. An 11-time Pro Bowl selection and 9-time All-Pro, Brooks was named AP NFL Defensive Player of the Year in 2002 and earned a Super Bowl ring with the Buccaneers in Super Bowl in February of 2014. Derrick received one of the highest honors of his life, being named to the Pro Football Hall of Fame, and was inducted into Canton, Ohio in August of 2014. He was also inducted into the Capital One Academic All-American Hall of Fame. In September of 2014, Derrick was enshrined into the Ring of Honor by the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. The number 55 would never be worn by another Buccaneer player. Derrick is currently serving as an appeals officer for the National Football League, as well as the executive vice president of the corporate community development at the Amalie Arena. He also serves on the Super Bowl host committee of Super Bowl 55. Brooks graduated with a bachelor's degree in business communication at Florida State University, where he was a 3-time first-team All-Atlantic Coast Conference selection, 2-time first-team All-American, and a member of the 1993 Seminole National Championship team in November 2010. Florida State retired Seminole jersey number 10 in honor of Brooks, and he was also inducted into Florida State Hall of Fame. He went on to earn his master's in business communication from FSU in 1999 and received his doctorates in humane letters from St. Leo's University in 2006. Recognized as often for his hard work in the community as he is for his hard hits on the football field. Brooks has been the recipient of several prestigious awards, including the 2000 Walter Payton NFL Man of the Year Award in 2003, the Bart Starr Award in 2004, and Byron Rizzard White Award in 2008, the JV Award through the NFL Players Association, all of which recognized as NFL Player Annual for their commitment to the community in which they live. Derrick has also received numerous community awards in Tampa, Florida, for his heart and dedication to the community, such as his 2007 Citizen of the Year from the Tampa Sports Club in 2014, the Leroy Selman Lifetime Achievement Award from the Tampa Sports Commission, 2014 Community Hero Award from the Tampa Bay Lightning, and the 2014 Community Champion Award from the Boys and Girls Clubs, and the 2021 WrestleMania 37 Community Champion Award. Brooks was appointed by the Board of Trustees of Florida State University by Governor Jeb Bush in 2003, where he occupied a seat until 2011. He has also served on the Florida Department of Education Foundation, St. Leo University, and Brooks DeBartolo Charity Incorporated. In 2007, he was appointed by Governor Charlie Crist as the chairman for the Governor's Council on Physical Fitness, helping to eliminate the problem of childhood obesity in the state of Florida. Derrick also serves on the board of directors. By partnering with the DeBartolo family, he is able to recognize and realize a lifetime dream with the opening of his very first traditional charter high school in Tampa Bay area. Brooks DeBartolo excuse me for mispronouncing that, Collegiate High School. Panelists, our wonderful guests that are attending today, please give a warm welcome for our esteemed keynote speaker today, Mr. Derek Brooks.
Well, thank you. I humbly appreciate that introduction. And again, thank you to the task force and all the hard work that everyone has done to bring a summer summit of education to this platform. And I must say, I've been in a lot of pressure situations in regards to a football field, but man, I feel no more pressure now than following Dr. Graham in that tremendous presentation that he just shared with us by us expanding our learning through the beauty of music in every area of our life. So I'll do the best I can to get a passing grade on the poll after we speak. But I bring greetings to everyone on behalf of my family. Everything with me starts with my faith in God, and I thank God for the opportunity to engage in this manner. And I can't do that without recognizing my family, my lovely wife, Carol, whom I've known since we were 8 years old in Pensacola, Florida. And we have 4 beautiful children, 2 daughters. My oldest daughter name is Brianna, and my youngest daughter name is my oldest daughter name is Brianna, and my youngest daughter is Dania. And I have 2 sons. DeKalen Brooks is the second oldest, and Darius is the second youngest. So again, without the foundation here at home of serving my family, would not give me the power, to be honest with you, to go out and influence the world in the way that God wants me to through the beauty of sport. And that leads me today. I really want to leave one message, if I can, with everybody, is the importance of learning and how important education is to me, particularly when it comes to African American history and learning about our culture. A lot of things that you'll hear today will be pretty much non-football, but it's because of the sport of football and the stage that God allowed me to stand on, fed my passion for education. And it goes all the way back to my days at Florida State, and I saw a lot of Go Noles recognitions in the chat. So I say that to all my Seminoles hanging there with us. We're going to be back, and Go Noles for sure. But we was led by Coach Bobby Bowden. If Bobby Bowden set a foundation in college of understanding faith, family, football, and education in that order. And for me, as someone that's always been a super smart kid, I was God blessed when it came to my academics. Some would say I was a nerd back then, but I always embraced the opportunity of learning. And back in high school, I wanted to dismail or do everything I could to attack the word dumb jock. I could not stand that word. And I heard someone on television, a white announcer, talking about football players and how the lack of reading skills that they had, and they were just being pushed through college as dumb jocks as long as they can play football. And I never ever forgot that, 1986, when that announcer said that. And I said, I'm gonna be a difference. That won't happen with me. I cannot stand that word. So everything I did from hearing that announcer say that, when it came to sport, everything came in proper perspective for me. I wanted to be the difference. I wanted to show all of my teachers that not only I could excel as an athlete, but yes, I'll be the only one in my classes, all honors classes, et cetera, that look like me, but excelling just like the other students and still playing a sport. And that passion fed me to the point where I tell a small story. When I first got to high school in the 9th grade, went to Washington High School in Pensacola, and I was late for this English class. I didn't know where it was. You know, first day in high school was a little intimidating. So I walked into class, and the teacher looks at me as she's shutting the door, and she said, "Excuse me, can I help you?" I said, "Yes. You know, is this, you know, room, whatever it was?" She said, "Yes, it is." I said, "I apologize for being late. I just got lost. It'll never happen again." And she said, "What is your name?" And I told her, "My name is Derek Brooks." And she looked at me and she said, "You sure you belong in here?" And I'm looking around her and I see a lot of these students who I've been in the same class with, you know, for 3 or 4 years now. I look back at her and I said, "Yes, I believe I'm in the right place." And she said, "Oh, really?" So she said, "Well, come in, let me check my roll." Well, she goes in and she sees my name and she has me sit at the back of the classroom. So as she rearranging her room in alphabetical order, she never calls my name. So I wait till the class get over and she asks a question. She says, "Anyone have any questions before we leave for the bell?" And I raise my hand. And I said, "Miss Such and Such, obviously I know she didn't call my name, but there's a seat that's sitting right next to your desk. Do you mind if I sit in that seat right next to your desk?" And she said, "Young man, that seat is for people that are going to cause trouble in my classroom and be a distraction. I have them sit up here, so that's not the case. Do you plan on being a distraction?" I said, "No, I don't plan on being a distraction. But what I do plan on doing is making all A's in this class. And I want to sit next to you so you don't accuse me of cheating, because everybody in this class knows that I'm going to do it and they're going to try to cheat off my paper." And her mouth just dropped. And she said, that's pretty bold. She said, "That's pretty bold of you." I said, "No, that's not pretty bold of me. That's facts." So this teacher ended up being one of my best professors in high school. And I went on and made all A's in the class, and I sat right there in that seat. And for me, I didn't understand if that was racism on her part or whatever it was. But for me, it just fed my passion. I tell that story when I tell kids about the same passion and importance of education. That's the foundation we stand on. It's not something we fall back on. It's something that sets the foundation of what you do in life, no matter if it's sport, industry, whatever it is. This is a foundation you stand on. And for me, I was able to combine that on a football field. And every opportunity I had a chance to say that and show it, I did. To the tune where when I was the #1 recruit coming out of high school, my high school coach got upset with me because I would not take a picture in my uniform on our field. And he was so upset. He made me make me run, do all these things in punishment. And I said, "Coach, I'm gonna take this picture, but I'm gonna take it in the library." And he said, "Derek, what sense does that make? You're the #1 recruit for football." I said, "Coach, it makes sense to me because that's where I spend most of my time. I spend more time in there than I do on this football field. So I want people to understand what I am truly about, a student athlete." And he sat back and, in his own girly way, he said, I had a ton of respect for you, but all I could do now is just say the respect turns to love, because you never let anything distract you from your educational journey. So guys, I say all that to say, even as I pass through all my journeys in football, that's been the case. And I'm truly blessed that I had a head coach in 1996 named Tony Dungy that understood that, hey, as he was coming to Tampa to turn around a Tampa Bay franchise from perennial losers to perennial winners, that he understood that we were going to do that about how we served our community in Tampa, not about how we performed on a football field. If we served our community and do things right, the winning on the football will take care of itself, because as Coach Dungy said, and I quote him by telling us this: winning off the field, no one loses, because we're not keeping score. So everybody wins when this team impacts the community. And they're going to support us for that, no matter what the score is on that field, because we're going about it as the right people and not football players. And guys, that resonated with me so much in my life today that I thank Coach Dungy pretty much every week I talk to him, but instilling that message in us, that football is just going to be a stage to stand on. So how that bring us to today in creating our own history? Where it brings us to creating our own history and how instilling that importance in our youth is because now we have to engage our young people and get them to understand that the best version of themselves in today's world and being the best version of yourself is creating your history. It's finding that fabric within your history. And I try to do it through the means of education. There's so many tools that are available to them now through technology that we have to incorporate these technology tools to meet them at their space and place so they're comfortable making their history and understanding it. And it's truly important, and that's why my foundation partnered with Everfi, that we have an element within our educational system that focuses on African-American history. But more importantly, what I like to tell these young men and young women as we learn about our past, that has to be an inspiration to us to create our future and be the history, because we want people years from now to look back on our generation and be taking things from what we did and earning and learning and creating our space and our history. And I tell them, everybody could be a part of history every single day. Why? Because God put us on this earth to do his will. That's our history, period. And I hope I don't offend anyone by saying that, but that's just how my faith leads me every single day. That I'm going to be a part of history every single day because I want to have impact in doing God's will, good, bad, or indifferent. I just feel that if it's God-led and faith-led, it gives me a chance to succeed in creating whatever he wants me to do. So that's what I try to tell these young people today, to embrace those opportunities in doing that. And by embracing those opportunities, you don't have to be the smartest. You just got to be willing. And you got to want order. And what I say by wanting order is there's a certain discipline to learning and being a part of history that we all have to be a part of. No matter what the circumstance and situation may be, there has to be a level of discipline that we had to have in our lives in order to do that. So as I try to make those efforts with young people by telling them, hey, let's recognize the opportunity, one. Two, have a discipline behind that opportunity, because having a discipline behind that opportunity will give us a journey and a vision to now go execute on that opportunity, whatever it is. And I must tell and share with you guys, our young people, when they hear and see that someone cares, they want to give you their all. They want to give you your best effort. And that's all I could ask them to do is say, just give me your best effort. And a young lady asked me about 3 years ago, she said, Mr. Brooks, I'm giving you my best effort, but physically I can't. I say, it's not about the physical approach. Effort doesn't care what you look like. Effort don't care how tall you are, how small you are, how big, how little, how pretty. It doesn't care. All effort cares about is it's given, and you're the person to give it. I say everything that God created on this earth in terms of a creature, in terms of human beings, we all share in giving effort. I say that's one thing that we share with animals. Animals have to give effort to do something. we share that with them. I say, effort doesn't carry, long as you give it. I say, you give me your best effort, it'll land in the right place and space. And this young lady has taken that, and now she's going on, and I don't mean to brag about her, but understanding her situation, how she viewed herself, changed her mindset from a physical approach to I'm giving my best effort. Now she's on the way to be a doctor in the neighborhood she grew up in giving back. Because she found someone that cared and just explained to her, hey, just give your best effort. It'll land in the right space. It really doesn't. So effort doesn't have any qualities. And the other beautiful thing I tell them about effort is effort can't be manipulated. You can't fool. Because there's a competition between two people, you and you. You may be able to fool me. You can try to fool me, but I wasn't born at night or last night. You can't fool me. But you really can't manipulate yourself. When you look in a mirror and you look at that phone, whatever it is, and you look back on yourself, you know if you gave your best effort. From a spiritual standpoint to a mental standpoint, physical standpoint, you know if you gave your best effort. In some cases, the result will show that. But I'm not looking for results, I'm looking for effort. And you can control that. Your environment can't control it. You can. And lastly, when it gets to how I think about the importance and the benefits of education and learning, particularly in African-American studies with our kids, is I want to set the right attitude framework. And what I mean by setting the right attitude is every one of us, almost 200 people listening in now, for 3 seconds, think about this. Just one question. If attitudes are contagious, is your attitude worth catching? I'm going to repeat that. If attitudes are contagious, is your attitude worth catching? And as you think about that question, you think about where we have been the last 2.5 years when it comes to things that are contagious. It's been a very negative effect with COVID-19 or any other disease. We don't want the contagiousness, has been a bad thing. But if your attitude is the right attitude, I want to catch it. I really do. And I say that every time I speak because attitude sets the right framework. I do not want, personally, if you come around me and you're working with me, I say this in the most humble way. I don't want a vaccine for my attitude. I don't want it to be cured. I want my attitude to spread in the most positive way it can, because I want to have the right attitude framework. And you ask yourself that question in tough situations, not in the coziness of our Zoom interaction, but it's going to be a moment, space, place, and time where somebody has put you on the wrong side of the street, or someone has did this, or a frustrating situation or something. It'll be tested. And you have to sit back and for 10 seconds ask that question. Is my attitude worth catching right now? And I hope that you can rework and framework that attitude where the answer is yes, and you can redirect it in the most positive space, because you can control that. You control your effort and you can control your attitude. But 9 times out of 10, your attitude controls your effort. So I would like to always set the right framework with our young people in their attitudes. And I tell them, bring me that bad attitude. Bring it to me. Because I don't believe in there's a bad kid. I believe in there's a bad circumstance or a bad attitude. And let's try to work on it. And some situations are tougher than others. Don't get me wrong. I wish I could sit here and tell you they've all been the best, but they're not. But what is my effort to try to help. And I say that to all our teachers and educators, that are on, because it is days that you may seem like, man, my effort, these things are unappreciated, but you never know who's watching and what influence you're going to be on that young man or that young woman in your life. So again, in framing it, like I say, I like to really just all bring it back to a center's piece. And everybody, as we move forward, if you take anything away from our engagement today when it comes to our learning and our history, is let's help ourselves. I know I'm focusing on young people, but the message is for all of us. If we can be the best version of ourselves and find our space and place every single day, that's how we create our own history. That's how we continue to make it relevant. Secondly, yes, we have to, as Dr. Graham said, we have to have concentrated efforts to coordinate programs to make sure our history is being taught. Let's embrace those. The situations are what they are. Let's make the best out of them as we do it. As we do that, let's give our best effort in everything we do. Let's maximize every single day that God has given us to do his will on this earth. Let's not waste it. And lastly, let's do it with the right attitude framework. Ask yourself in those tough times, is your attitude worth catching? And believe me, that has redirected me in so many positive ways, whether it's on a football field, whether it's my charity, whether it's my day-to-day job at Vinix Sports Group. It always keeps me in the right frame of mind of how I want to get the best out of people that I work with. And at the same time, it keeps me in the most humble position to give my best with everyone that I'm working for and working with. So with that, I ask Ms. Sabrina, do I have an opportunity to take questions in a chat? I never like to leave any engagement with anyone having an opportunity to ask me questions, because I'm here to serve you guys. So if anyone has a question, I'd like to lose my last 5 to 10 minutes to answer those questions.
Roxy, did you hear that? Does Mr.
Yes, I saw you on mute, and I thought you were really excited. But first of all, before we even do any questions, I want us to do a snap, snap, snap. What an amazing experience. Yes, what an amazing experience. And we want to give a snap, snap, snap. If you gain anything, if you were inspired, yeah, he's snapping himself. Mr. Brooks is snapping himself. He said he don't want a vaccine for his attitude. He wants his attitude to spread. If you want that attitude to spread, snap it up. So what we're going to do right now is we have the Q&A section. If you have a question, please, again, remember what I said before. We want to take full advantage of the resources that we have available to us while we have them. So if you have any questions, anyone have any questions for Mr. Brooks?
Roxy, this is Dr. Kelly. I don't have a question, but I see Matthew Couric has finally joined us. So Matthew, if you'd like to say something on behalf of Everfi, because they were the ones who helped us bring, and Everfi is going to give us some really important information that's going to help all of our attitudes.
Thanks, Dr. Kelly. My apologies. I have network issues. I'm in like a common space today. But no, just grateful to the partnership with the task force and with Derek Brooks Charities, and really their focus on elevating the conversation, the importance of African American history. So thank you so much. I've had the pleasure of getting to listen to Mr. Brooks several times, and I'm always inspired both as an educator and just as a person. So thank you so much again, Derek.
Oh, thank you, Matt. Obviously, our partnership all these years have been wonderful. And again, in this space and place, as we continue to spread the message through all of our means now with technology, we're going to continue to support each other and do it. So again, thank you guys for your partnership, and let's keep pushing the needle.
All right, I think we have a question. from Michelle Wright. First of all, we have Dr. I'm gonna read some of these things. Dr. Sylvia R. Jackson said, "You are very inspiring, Mr. Brooks."
Thank you.
And then we had Lana Sullivan say that, "I don't have a question, but I so appreciate Mr. Brooks' acknowledgement of God and family. Our kids, especially our boys, get so hung up on just football. It's so important to recognize those key elements in their life. Thank you, sir." Snap, 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 snap. We have two more questions. I'm going to actually, Mr. Brooks, I'm going to read both of them. That way you can kind of answer them back to back if you would like. We have one question. What advice would you give first-year teachers? And the next actually is a comment. So I'll let you get that question in and then we'll read the comment. What advice, Mr. Brooks, would you give first-year teachers?
Well, thank you. And I actually, I'll take some of the advice I give to our first year teachers that we have at Brooks, the Barlow Collegiate High School, our high school. One, my first advice to them is pray over your classroom. Pray over yourself and pray over your classroom. Every single day that you go into that classroom, you have to understand that you are influencing someone's child. And you've been trusted with that. The next advice I give them is, stay humble and don't get discouraged. Teaching and finding throughout the day the relationship that you have to build and walk the fine line on is going to get tested, and you can't do it alone. So every single day, I feel if you pray over your classroom, you're praying for those strengths. Secondly, you have to, it's priority for educators to stay encouraged and see the bigger picture. Because if we don't see the bigger picture in this, just the stress of what we've been through the last 2.5 years when it comes to educational learning, that fatigue will wear you out and wear you down. And we need teachers as frontline soldiers in education to continue to close that gap. And that's why I tell first year teachers to do that. And thirdly, seek professional development as a teacher. Do not get comfortable in the position you are as a first year teacher. Always look for professional development in different ways to get your learning styles handed down. Some of them may be visual learners, some now computer learners, some of them are one-on-one. So you have to find out your niche in your classroom to how to reach every single kid. And my fourth advice is this: see something, say something. See something, say something. We're all in this together in protecting our safety. So that will be my advice to first year, which my advice I have given and advice that I would give to all first year teachers.
Wonderful, thank you. I think that we're gonna ask Dr. Coggins to ask his question, but I think that advice, Mr. Brooks, can go for teachers from every year, not only teachers, but anyone that's an educational stakeholder and just in life in general. So thank you for that, those key admonitions. We have one comment before yes.
Roxy Letters, Derek didn't mention it, but he has sent all kind of young people to Africa with his Derek charities in his community.
Okay.
So he has really educated young people in this town.
Wow.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Wright. Yes.
Oh, my pleasure.
I've been blessed. Yes, I've been blessed to take two groups of kids in 1999 and in 2006. We took both trips, what in total was about 110 kids to South Africa each time for 2 weeks. And we took a group of kids as apartheid was going on, and we took another group of kids after Mandela was released and apartheid was demolished. And again, as you've heard me say, Dr. Wright, life-changing. It's beautiful educationally. Those kids today, as they tell the stories with their own families, and I just sit back and listen because I know how that trip impacted me, but to hear how that has impacted them in their lives is truly a blessing.
Well, thank you. I see your game balls in the background. You definitely get a game ball today. You definitely get a game ball today. We are so excited about what you've done. Dr. Coggins seems as though he has a comment as well.
Yeah, Dr. Brooks, first you brought tears to my eyes as you talked about the importance of attitude.
Yes,
And
sir.
Dr. Wright asked partly the question I wanted, because when we talk about African-American history, we tend to forget that there's an origin. I didn't get here, my ancestors. And to hear you focus on Africa, where we all have our origin, those of us who consider ourselves to be African descent, what is it more we can do to connect African Americans with the Caribbean and with the continent of Africa so that we can see this intertwining of attitude and spirit that our ancestors brought through what we call enslavement?
What I would say, Dr. Coggins, what we did in teaching these classes is I really studied and used at the time the USA African Embassy to identify the educational institutions in those areas, not just South Africa, but as you said, the Caribbeans and the islands out there. We found educational partners to help us bridge the gap. And now, because of how technology has advanced, we have to be just intentional in what we do. We just have to be intentional in what we do. There's no more excuses to how can we reach and how can we, it's how we can't is barriers. No, I don't believe in that. Let's find the right way and the right tools to find those educational partners to help us bridge that gap. Now, once we find those partners, now we can discuss what the substance of that education needs to be. Is it history? Is it finance? Is it culture? Is it art? Is it music? Is it all those subjects that we go through every single day here in the United States? What are those same things like in our connecting countries? And how can we help? So I would say those things are that is being intentional. And then we can just, as I say, let's start, instead of trying, as I approach this, I didn't say I wanted to go try to accomplish it in seeing all of Africa. I just focused in on South Africa, Pretoria, Johannesburg. Let me start right there. And if that leads me to other areas of Africa, which it did, I will go as those things are led. But I just ask God to put me in this space and place right now and let me start to plant this tree, and we'll see where those branches go. And those branches have led to, as I say, Swaziland, Nigeria, some very remote areas as well, that we've been able to give educational resources for the last 20 years, to those countries. And a matter of fact, we've assisted in helping some of those students come to the United States, pre-COVID for some internships as well.
Great answer. That is such an inspiring piece. I've had the opportunity to also share with educators because the students need to know, but like we've been saying all along, students can't learn from teachers that don't know. So yes. I encourage those who are listening, if you're interested in doing something like this, the Department of State has grants and partners who are willing to work with you to put these kinds of tours together. So if you just reach out, we can't do it alone. We have to do it as a community. You heard that saying, it takes a village. It takes a real village to do this. So thank you, Mr. Brooks. We really appreciate it. I mean, you deserve all the snaps Roxy can give you. Okay, good, Roxy, I'm gonna give it back to you.
Yes, snaps. And I mean, I don't know how many game balls too, a lot of those too. I love it. I love it. This has been a remarkable experience and we've gained so much. And so we are excited that you've been here. Thank you for your interaction and engagement and involvement. We will be back in this space starting at, I want to say the exact right time, Sabrina. You know, you are the exact, what time are we arriving back, Sabrina? Exactly what time are we coming back after lunch?
At 1 p.m.
We will be back at 1 p.m., same bat time, same bat channel. We will be in this space at 1 p.m. We'll be in this space. You will log back in the same way that you came in. And that goes for our presenters as well as our attendees. You'll use the same information to log in. Let's snap to every presenter. I mean, even that video musical presentation, that inspired me and got me going from the very beginning. Let's snap to the task force. You all systematically created this experience, and every step of the way it built upon each part to a crescendo to where we are right now. And so we're very excited. Just like before, you see the poll for Mr. Graham, and the poll also went out in your chat. Okay, it went out in your chat as well. It went out in your app as well. So again, Mr. Brooks, we are utilizing technology just like you said, and we're doing that. We will have, and this is the exciting piece of it. We will have every presentation today. We will have the video for every presentation today. It will be loaded within the app, and then Sabrina and her team will be getting it at some point on the YouTube page for the task force. And so we will have multiple ways for you to gain that information and look at those videos. But as you are leaving out, I want you to give us a takeaway from this morning. There's accountability. Once you have this information, there's some accountability. Does that make sense? We're not here just to be here. We're here on purpose for a purpose, and that is to make an impact. What impact are you going to make based on what you gleaned this morning from our speakers that did a remarkable job? So we want you to put that in the chat. There's a little bit of accountability for that. Put that in the chat. I'm going to make sure that I don't leave out anything. So if Dr. Kelly or Sabrina has something to say before we go to lunch, and then we will go from there, and we will see you at 1. Dr. Kelly.
Yes, I just want to make sure that we have the poll that Representative Graham kept coming up when we want to give Derek Brooks his props too, so we have the right poll. But my takeaway is that I need to, as I get older, I'm going to use music to remember some of the stuff I got to do. What about you?
So that's the way I learned the Greek alphabet. It was music.
Yes. Very good. And I know Mr. Brooks talked about that faith element, and there are certain things that we can't not do per se publicly, but privately. No one can stop us from what we do when we walk into our classroom. No one can stop us from doing those things. And so we need to ensure and understand. And so that faith, bringing that faith and passion into what we do matters. And I know we do that. That's one of the reasons our company, that's why we work with amazing organizations like this one, because it's important. It matters. You can choose the impact that you make. And so we're excited about that. Look at that, Dr. Kelly. Do you see the accountability that's going up in the chat? Do you see the accountability?
It happens after prayer. Thank you, Mr. Brooks. It happens after prayer.
And so we will be coming back after lunch. You get a few minutes early. And Dr. Kelly, yes, that survey is out there. That poll was up. It is up. It's up in the app, and it's also up on the screen here. So it will be closing out soon. And then we will be again. Sabrina, anything before we close out?
Don't forget that we have an ongoing book giveaway on our Instagram page, as well as in Hoover. I will share those links again, so you will be able to participate, and also within our chat.
All right. So we're gonna, we did have some winners, and we'll make sure, Sabrina, after lunch we'll put those winners up. I think our tech team is working on multiple things right now, and we may get it up and just have it on the screen when you come back in. So have a great lunch. You don't have to shut you just turn your camera off and you can come right back. So you don't have to necessarily leave. But if you want to just mute yourself and stop your video, well, you know what? We can't see you. But for our panelists, you can do that. If you want to mute yourself, panelists, and just stop your video, that will be just fine. So you don't have to try to get back in. Everyone else, we'll see you at 1 p.m. Have a great lunch.
Thank you.